The mother pushed her daughter down the stairs to stop her from seeing her poor boyfriend. The daughter fell to the ground, unable to move, clutching her stomach in pain. The father thought that his daughter was just suffering from indigestion, as she usually didn't like to eat. But the doctor said that his daughter was pregnant. The father couldn't believe the news. His precious daughter, who didn't even have a boyfriend, was pregnant. This was really hard for the father to accept. He left in pain. The mother understood in her heart what had happened to the child in Sora's stomach. The father stumbled out of the hospital in a daze, not knowing how he got there. He angrily questioned Sora about who the father was. Sora stuttered and tried to say something, but her mother interrupted. The mother helped Sora lie and said that the daughter had an accident the last time she got drunk. Sora didn't know who the child in her stomach was, so she just treated it as a nightmare and forgot about it. Youngkyu broke down after hearing this. He absolutely could not let his daughter suffer such humiliation. He went directly to the police station to find the murderer who hurt his daughter. Jinky tried to stop him, telling him to think about his daughter's future. Sora, isn't she more precious than anything else in your heart? If you report to the police, then everyone will know about your daughter. Then your daughter will suffer even more and ruin her future. And your status as a civil servant will also be greatly impacted. If this continues, the whole family will live in endless pain. It was only after his wife persuaded him that Youngkyu gave up the idea of reporting the matter to the police. But the anger in his heart was even greater. Youngkyu decided to keep the matter a secret and not let anyone know about this shameful affair. After her father left, his mother repeatedly told Sora that she must never tell her father the truth that the baby was Taejun's. If she did, Taejun would definitely be sent to prison by her father, and you and I would be finished. A frightened Sora could only obey her mother. On the way home, Sora was thinking about her date with her boyfriend, so she lied and said she had a date with her best friend and had to rush over there now. But her father told her to stay home and not even go to school. And Taejun, who didn't know any of this, was still waiting for Sora at the park. At this time, he was very confused. Sora, who never missed an appointment, didn't come this time. Youngkyu, who had returned home, was crying bitterly in his room. He was distressed that his precious daughter had suffered such a painful thing at such a young age, and wondered how much his daughter's heart and spirit had been hurt. He must find a way to cheer his daughter up and help her live a good life. Jinky noticed that Sora's phone kept ringing, and when she took it out, she saw a message from Taejun saying that he was right outside the door. Jinky hurried outside and gave Taejun a hard slap in the face. Taejun didn't know why Sora's mother had suddenly become like this. However, Taejun's confusion only made Jinky more angry. He hurt his own daughter and still pretended not to know. Jinky, in a rage, took Taejun directly to his mother's beauty shop. She smashed everything she saw and hit Taejun whenever she saw him. Maybe this way she could release some of the pent-up anger in her heart. Both the mother and son thought that Jinky hated Taejun, so that's why she had just acted so crazily. Mayang was afraid that her son would reject her relationship with Sora just like his daughter did. Taejun questions what his mother did wrong to deserve Sora. Taejun, who has been unable to contact Sora, wonders what has happened to her. Why does pure love have to be connected to material things? Everyone is against his relationship with Sora. He can only vent his anger through sports. He goes to Sora's house and thinks about how Sora's parents hate and despise him. He begins to worry about his future with Sora. Youngkyu's love for his daughter has not changed in the slightest. He worried that his daughter could not bear the psychological blow. He took care of his daughter every day, but the tragic situation of his daughter made Youngkyu feel more and more distressed. His daughter also felt extremely painful. Youngkyu wanted to end his daughter's pain and let her return to her old life, so he took Sora to a private obstetrics and gynecology clinic to remove the baby in her belly. But after Sora learned about it, she was unwilling to get out of the car no matter what. She was suffering because she couldn't see Taejun every day. It wasn't what her father thought. The baby was the fruit of her love with Taejun. She couldn't just let it go. The mother was so scared that she gagged Sora's mouth. But it was too late. The father outside had already heard the truth that the baby in his daughter's belly was Taejun's. Sora took advantage of her mother's inattention to open the car door and ran away directly. She wanted to go and meet Taejun and tell him about the baby. But soon Youngkyu rushed to Taejun's house and overturned the table. He also wanted to teach Taejun a lesson and send him to prison. Mayang admitted that her family was poor, but they should not be trampled on like this by the rich barging into their home. She was furious that her family's dignity had been ignored like this. Sora's mother angrily said that her daughter was pregnant. At this point, Taejun realized that he had actually gotten someone else's daughter pregnant. Sora, who was only 22, was afraid when she encountered this situation for the first time and didn't know what to do next. Fortunately, Taejun is a responsible man. The child is the fruit of their love. He must do whatever it takes to have the baby. The only way now is to get married. But he has nothing and is financially incapable. so Taejun is a little worried that the pampered Sora will not be able to endure the hardship. Sora says that hardship is nothing. As long as you are by my side, I will not be afraid. Taejun is full of confidence in their future after hearing what Sora said. He assures Sora that it will be the hardest for 2 years at most, and after he graduates and gets a job, they can live happily as a family of 3. The two of them just imagined the bright future together. This made Sora even more want to live with Taejun right away. The next day, Taejun came and knelt before Sora's father, hoping to get his approval for his marriage to Sora and to have the baby he was carrying. Taejun's actions only made Youngkyu more furious. How could someone who couldn't even support himself think of supporting his daughter and a child? So without any hesitation, he directly mocked Taejun. You, a person who doesn't even know your biological parents and was abandoned, still want to marry my daughter? Taejun never imagined that he was not his mother's biological son. He quickly ran home and looked through the family photos. Taejun was shocked to discover that the photo album contained pictures of his brother and sister as children, but there was no picture of him. His mother was still trying to defend herself because the family was in a difficult situation at the time, so she did not take any pictures of him. But this excuse was obviously not convincing. Taejun accepted that the family he had lived with for more than 20 years was not related to him. In pain, he left home. His father kept on persuading Sora to give up her feelings for Taejun and to abort the baby she was carrying. You two will not be happy together. You are only 22 years old. You still have a lot of time to enjoy. But Sora was determined to marry Taejun, no matter how hard it was. As long as Taejun was by my side, I would be the happiest. His father was so angry that he raised his hand to teach Sora a lesson. But in the end, he could not bear to hit his beloved daughter. Youngkyu could only lock his daughter up at home. Unexpectedly, Sora tied all the bed sheets together and secretly climbed down from the second floor. She was determined to pursue her own love, but she was discovered by her father. Her father's patience with Sora had reached its limit, and he gave her a final warning. Sora only wanted to see Taejun and didn't take her father's warning seriously. She valued Taejun more than her own father, who loved her. Youngkyu's patience with his daughter finally snapped at this moment. Today, no matter what, he was going to drag Sora to get rid of the baby in her belly and send her to study abroad. Sora refused to go to the hospital no matter what, but was slapped by her father. Seeing this, her grandmother hurriedly came over and told Sora to apologize to her father. Sora had never been hit by her father before, and she didn't think she had done anything wrong. Youngkyu also completely exploded. He ignored the family's objections and kicked Sora out of the house. No one in this family dares to disobey him. Her mother and others could only do nothing. Although Sora was very sad to have lost her beloved father, she was also very excited to finally be able to live with Taejun. Taejun packed his bags and prepared to take Sora to live outside. His mother said that this was his home and asked him to stay. Taejun said, "I'm not your son." Hearing this, Uncle Kim froze in his tracks. Sora couldn't bear to see this anymore and beat Taejun up. In the end, Taejun had to leave the home where he had lived for 20 years. He couldn't understand why his own parents had abandoned him. For Taejun, leaving was the same as running away from the pain. Sora hugged the crying Taejun tightly and told him not to be sad. "I and the child will always be by your side. Put aside the pain and start a new life." Taejun used the little money he earned from his part-time job to rent a rooftop with a decent environment to live in. Sora was also quite satisfied with it. This would be their love shack from now on. They also started to look forward to a bright future. On the other side, Youngkyu was drunk and holding his eldest daughter Sora's hand. "My dear daughter, you are now my only hope. Don't betray me like your sister did." Sora felt very uncomfortable after hearing her father's words. The reason was that she was already in a relationship with Taejun's brother Jaeho. If it weren't for Jaeho's business problems, they would have already gotten married. I wonder how Youngkyu will feel when he finds out. Sora, who had never done any housework before, now had to start cooking for herself. She couldn't use the gas stove and spent the morning trying to light the fire. But when Taejun returned, he saw smoke billowing from the rented house. He hurried inside and rescued Sora from the house, but there was bright red blood on Sora's thighs. Worried, they hurried to the hospital for tests. Fortunately, they arrived in time and there wasn't much problem. They could recover slowly at home and rest. This finally relieved the two of them. In the following days, Taejun began to carefully take care of Sora, taking care of all the housework. Sora still lived like a member of a wealthy family, happily eating as soon as her food was ready. She was used to eating fine food, and suddenly eating simple food felt like a different flavor. But after a few days, she began to complain that she only ate fried eggs every day. Without any financial resources, Sora could only ask Taejun for pocket money to go shopping. Taejun is puzzled. He just gave her a week's allowance yesterday, so why is it already gone? Sora explains matter-of-factly that she spent it all on taking her friends out to dinner yesterday. She even complains that she didn't have enough money to get home. Seeing the rich girl in front of him, Taejun is at a loss for words and can only dig into his own pocket. But Sora complains that the money he gives her is too little. In order to try to meet Sora's living needs, Taejun delivers takeaways during the day and still finds time to go back to school to study. After school, he immediately went to the logistics center to work as a porter in the evening. The endless work almost made Taejun unable to bear it. He was reluctant to spend the money he earned on himself and spent it all on Sora. However, Sora did not know any of this and always felt that making money was easy. That day, Sora finally tasted the taste of not being able to live without money. She used to spend money like water, but now when she went shopping with her best friend, she could only watch her best friend buy everything. With only a week's living expenses in her pocket, she could not afford to buy anything. She was psychologically devastated. She found an excuse and quickly fled the mall. She sneaked back to the mansion and tried to sell the luxury goods she had bought to get money. However, she was discovered by her mother. Her mother once again persuaded Sora to apologize to her father and everything would go back to normal. At this time, Sora did not want her mother to give her more money. The mother, who was worried about her daughter, had no choice but to give Sora all her allowance. But just as Sora was leaving with a full bag, her father suddenly returned home and saw Sora. Then he saw the money and designer bag scattered on the floor. He immediately knew what had happened. In anger, he directly accused Sora of being a thief and wanted to call the police to arrest her. In the end, Sora was so scared that she could only quickly escape empty-handed. Her mother knew that her precious daughter must have been having a hard time and had no choice but to run back for money. So she hid it from her husband and asked her eldest daughter to go find Taejun and tell him that Sora had come home today to ask for money. Sora gave Taejun 100 million won and asked him to take good care of Sora. This made Taejun feel very bad. He had already done his best to give Sora the best of everything. Sora's actions today completely hurt Taejun's heart. When she learned that her eldest sister had come to give money but was rejected by Taejun, she immediately lost her temper. Sora began to complain sadly, blaming Taejun for not understanding how tired she was living now. The room is small, the bathroom is small, and every day I have to climb the stairs to go home. And you go out every morning and don't come back until late at night. I'm stuck here all alone. I'm starving to death. I can't afford to buy the food I want. I want to save money and live a good life, but I just can't do it. Hearing this, Taejun understood and gave Sora two choices. Either pack your bags and go back to the rich family you've always lived with and go back to your old life, or stay here with me and be honest with me. Sora found that her current life was not like what her boyfriend had promised before, but she didn't try to understand her boyfriend. Taejun had to work hard from dawn to dusk to earn money for her, and his body was already at its limit. But Taejun didn't complain. He worked hard every day for their future. Sora sat on the rooftop and looked at the bustling city in the distance, her eyes full of melancholy. Just then, Taejun's adoptive mother arrived. She knew that Taejun was having a hard time studying and working while also taking care of Sora. So Myung had to transfer the beauty shop and gave some money to Sora. This money can relieve Taejun of a lot of pressure and let Sora take good care of it. However, what no one expected was that the first thing Sora did after getting the money was to go find the feeling of being a rich girl she once had. She first went to a fancy restaurant and had a big meal, then came to the fancy clothes store she had longed to go to and bought whatever clothes she liked without asking the price. Then she went to the electronics store and bought all the household appliances she needed. Looking at her spoils of the day, the long-lost smile finally blossomed again on Sora's cute face. However, when Taejun returned, he was puzzled because he didn't know the situation and wondered why there were so many electrical appliances in the house. Sora still didn't know the seriousness of the situation and happily showed off the limited edition clothes she bought in front of Taejun. Taejun thought that Sora had secretly asked her wealthy parents for money again. When he learned that it was his mother who gave the money, Taejun suddenly felt incredible. But then, when he looked again, 3 million won had been spent, and after Sora waved her hand like this, there was only 1 million won left. Sora felt that the things she bought with this money were all justified. She felt that this was the only way to make her life better. Taejun questioned her. Are you crazy? Why did you buy all these things? Do you know how hard my mother works to earn money? Taejun returned everything that could be returned. Then he went to his mother's beauty shop to return the money. At this time, he was shocked to discover that his mother had already transferred the beauty shop to someone else. Taejun finally understood why his poor mother had so much money. At this time, Hyami wanted to borrow some money from her mother. Her mother bluntly said that all the money had been used up for your unrealistic dream of becoming rich. At this time, Taejun came home and returned the money that his mother had given to Sora after selling the beauty salon. Hyami became anxious. She had just said that she had no money, But now she had sold the shop for her son who was not related to her. She could not understand why her mother treated an adopted son who was not related to her better than her biological children. Mayong told her to shut up and insisted that Taejun take the money and live a good life. Taejun is not Mayong's biological son, and he has always felt bad about it. He is very grateful to Mayong for her love and upbringing. After hearing Hyami's words, Taejun is even more reluctant to take the money. He doesn't want to own Mayong in this family anymore. Taejun's words deeply hurt Mayong. She has never seen Taejun as someone who was not her biological son, and she has never thought of Taejun repaying anything. This is the affection between a mother and son. How can it be measured in material terms? If it is measured, then wouldn't all the love I have shown you over the years be false? If you don't treat me as your mother, I will treat you as if you are not my son. Taejun was also in pain. He did not want to say those things, because Mayong really loved him too much and gave him almost all of her love. When he learned that Mayong was not his biological mother, he no longer wanted Mayong to continue to worry about him. At this time, Sara finally reached the breaking point in her impoverished life. She complained about her current life, which was not good. She complained that she was like in prison, unable to go anywhere. She even complained that Taejun did not come to understand her current feelings and did not accompany her. At this time, Taejun also finally exploded and began to speak his mind. In order to satisfy all your needs, I have to work hard to earn money. But you complain that I don't accompany you. When did you ever care if I'm tired? Have you ever asked me that once? At this moment, Sara finally completely regretted choosing this love without material things. She finally woke up and felt endless regret. At the beginning, she didn't listen to her father and insisted on living with the poor boy. Sara decided to escape from here. Taejun hurriedly chased after her and tried to stop her. In the struggle, Sara accidentally fell down the stairs. The doctor tells Taejun that Sora's water has broken and that she must give birth immediately. Sara is in a lot of pain and cries out for her mother. Taejun, who doesn't know what to do, has no choice but to call Sora's mother. But Sora's father answers the phone and hears what's going on. Taejun tells him that Sora is going to give birth soon and that she wants to see her mother. But Yeonkyu tells Taejun that he no longer has a daughter named Sora. He told Taejun not to call again. Although Yeonkyu said this, his heart still ached for his daughter. He quietly rushed to the hospital alone. But when he arrived in front of the delivery room, he was afraid to go in. Listening from outside, he heard his daughter's heart-wrenching screams from inside the delivery room. Yeonkyu could only cover his ears tightly and crouch on the ground in pain. Every scream of his daughter felt like a rusty knife stabbing into his heart. In the end, with Sora's efforts, she successfully gave birth to a daughter. Taejun showed Sora the baby and praised her for looking like an angel from heaven. At this moment, Sara did not feel the slightest joy of being a mother. She turned her head away, not wanting to see her daughter. However, her nightmare within a nightmare officially began at this moment. Taejun was busy working and studying every day, and had no time to take care of Sora and the baby. Sora, who had no life experience, directly broke down mentally. At this time, her parents rushed over. Seeing their daughter's emaciated and suffering appearance, they felt extremely distressed, so Sora didn't hesitate and left directly with her father, leaving behind her daughter, who was still in her swaddling clothes and crying out of hunger. Taejun returned from work and witnessed Sora leaving with her rich father. He hurriedly shouted at Sora to chase after her, but Sora, who was sitting in the car, ignored him. She wanted to escape from here, from this hellish place. Her father finally felt relieved. Although the process was painful and difficult, it was good that Sora finally woke up and returned to his side. Father comforted Sora, telling her to forget everything and act as if nothing had happened. From now on, go back to your old life. A tear of remorse rolled down Sora's eye. She hated herself for not listening to her father in the first place. Taejun begged the landlord to take care of the child for the time being. He immediately found Sora and hoped that she would go back and take care of her daughter. Sora directly stated, "I'm not going back." No matter how Taejun begged, Sora remained indifferent. Sara no longer wanted to continue with this nightmare. She wants to stay by her rich father's side and return to her former life as a carefree princess. She doesn't need her daughter or that love without material things. There's nothing Taejun can do but come back to take care of the child. This time, he decides to bring the child along to persuade Sora to go home. He hopes that Sora will be moved by the sight of her adorable daughter and change her mind. But Grandma tells Taejun that Sora has already gone abroad to study. She begs Taejun to let Sora go and let her start a new life. At this time, Sara was about to leave, watched by her family, but she suddenly turned back to look at her once sweet love with Taejun. Then, for the sake of love, she was driven out of the house by her father. She felt that as long as there was love, she could overcome all difficulties. She imagined a bright future. In the end, without material satisfaction. She suffered the pain and despair of having a daughter. She withdrew her thoughts and felt that she had really been naive. Sora decided to forget all that and start her life over. However, at this time, Taejun had to bear all the responsibility for Sora's ruthless choice. In order to survive, he could only work with his newborn baby. However, the baby's crying, coupled with Taejun's behavior, affected the store's business, and the owner directly fired him. Without an income, Taejun could not even pay the rent and was evicted. Unexpectedly, homeless Taejun and his child met another downpour. At this time, his daughter in his arms was crying with hunger. What's even more frightening is that he has already used up all the formula milk he had to feed his daughter, so he can only feed her rainwater to satisfy her hunger. Finally, Taejun, who has no other choice, goes to a mother and baby store to steal formula milk. She is soon discovered by the owner, who is jealous of her for being a thief for the first time. Taejun, who is running away, is quickly caught, but despite the guilt he feels, he stops. He cannot commit a crime in front of his daughter. Taejun kneels on the ground and apologizes to the owner non-stop. He says that his newborn daughter has not had formula milk for a long time, so he has no choice but to do this. The boss told him that he should work hard to earn money to buy formula milk for his young daughter, and that he should not commit crimes. Taejun helplessly told the boss that his wife had abandoned them and left the country. He had to take care of the child alone and had no way to work. The kind-hearted boss saw that Taejun was very pitiful and finally handed him the formula milk. He also told Taejun not to do anything illegal for the sake of his child. There is true love in the world, which made Taejun extremely grateful. His daughter, who had finally been able to eat formula milk, beamed with satisfaction. This made Taejun forget all his current pain and he vowed to raise his daughter well. Unexpectedly, a few black-clad men appeared in front of Taejun and snatched the baby right from him. Taejun tried to snatch it back but was beaten up by the black-clad men and fell to the ground unable to move. He could only watch in pain as his daughter left him. The baby was sent to an orphanage and all of this was caused by Sora's father. He couldn't bear to see the baby suffer like Taejun had. Taejun knew that it must be Sora's father who had taken his child and went to his door. But no matter how Taejun begged, Youngkyu was unmoved and refused to admit that he had taken the child. Since the child had no birth certificate and no evidence, Taejun reporting the case to the police was useless. So he took the little money he had left and printed some missing person notices. He distributed them on the cold, snowy streets, hoping to find news of his daughter. But the mental pressure, coupled with the fact that he hadn't eaten for several days, finally made him collapse and faint. At this time, Sora, who had been sent to an orphanage, had already been adopted by a wealthy couple who had been unable to have children. The wife fell in love with the child at first sight. Grandma happened to be a guest of the wife. After Mrs. Lee brought the child back, Grandma went up to have a look and was instantly shocked. She quickly found an excuse and left in a hurry, because she had already seen that the child Mrs. Lee was about to adopt was Sora's newborn daughter. Youngkyu was also incredulous when he learned about this, because he was preparing to marry his eldest daughter to Mrs. Lee's younger brother. If that's the case, then Sora's child will become Sora's younger sister. In order to get their daughter married into the Chaebol family and climb up the social ladder, Youngkyu and his grandmother absolutely cannot let this happen because of Sora's child. Then they must get Sora's child out of the Chaebol's house. Subsequently, Youngkyu took the initiative to find Taejun, who had just been treated at the hospital on credit, and told Taejun that if he wanted to find his daughter, he had to sign this agreement. After that, he could not meet with Sora, and was not allowed to reveal that the child was born to Sora. Taejun did not hesitate for a moment and signed his name directly. After getting the news, Taejun immediately rushed to the Chaebol's house to try to get the child back. However, Mrs. Lee really liked this child because the child looked very much like her deceased son. There was nothing Taejun could do. He knelt outside the door, pounding on it and pleading. Youngkyu, who was hiding in the distance and watching the whole thing, was very worried. He was concerned about the family's reputation and didn't want to raise Sora's child. He sent the child to an orphanage. Now, in order for his family to climb the social ladder and become part of the Chaebol, he had to use Taejun to get rid of the child. Taejun had been kneeling outside the door for a long time. He understood the pain of being abandoned, so he will never let the same pain happen to his daughter. He will kneel until the end of time to get the child back. There is no way. Mrs. Lee came out and directly knelt in front of Taejun, begging him to give up the child, money or a house, whatever he wants. Taejun can satisfy him and let him have a worry-free life. Taejun was not attracted by such temptation and resolutely refused to give up his child. At this time, her husband Changmin directly took the child out. He directly held his wife back and let Taejun take the child away. Taejun ran away with his precious daughter in his arms. He felt like he had won a treasure. However, What Taejun and Mrs. Lee didn't know was that they were hiding a big secret from everyone. After Taejun got his daughter back, he could only go back to his foster mother's side. The family still treated Taejun as their own. Just like before, Taejun also vowed that for the sake of his daughter Lucy, he had to forget all his pain and live a good life. 5 years passed in the blink of an eye, and Lucy grew into a cute little girl. Taejun had to take care of his daughter and work to earn money, so he graduated a few years later than others. And Sora, who fell in love with a poor boy and completely regretted abandoning her daughter, also returned from studying abroad and became an artist. The little girl beamed with happiness in the company of her parents. However, when Lucy saw this scene, she revealed a kind of yearning, unattainable, envious look. She asked her father, "Where did my mom go? I also want to be like other children, to have not only a father but also a mother." Taejun endured the pain in his heart and could only helplessly tell his daughter, "Dad will do a good job being a mother and love you 100 times. 1,000 times more. I can give you whatever you want as a father." Lucy then revealed a bright and innocent smile, but she didn't know that she had been abandoned by her mother shortly after she was born. But even though her father loved and cared for her so much, Lucy always had tears in her eyes whenever the kindergarten held parent-child activities, while her classmates have their mothers by their sides. The stool that should have been occupied by her mother is always empty. Lucy never knew what her mother looked like. She only heard from her aunt and grandmother that her mother was in the United States. This also caused other children in kindergarten to often come and tease Lucy for being a child without a mother. It also hurt Taejun's heart to see his daughter suffer like this. Over the years, Taejun has never stopped thinking about finding Sora to give his daughter a complete family. He has never forgotten the good times he had with Sora, and always thinks of the days he spent with Sora. Taejun already knew that Sora had returned to her home country and become an entertainer. For the sake of his daughter, Taejun still found the courage to go find Sora, and when they met again, Sora's attitude towards Taejun was that of a most familiar stranger, and towards Taejun, who was still impoverished, she did not have the slightest interest in understanding him. She also had no curiosity about her biological daughter whom she had abandoned 5 years ago. Sora bluntly told Taejun that 5 years ago, when she chose to leave, she had already decided to delete all memories of her and the child. She told Taejun never to appear in front of her again and not to contact her. It was only then that Taejun finally understood. Until now, he had always held the fantasy that Sora had chosen to leave because she was ignorant. After Sora matured, she would surely wake up and return to him for the sake of the child. But now Taejun suddenly felt that he had been self-sentimental all these years. It turns out that Sora really did abandon him and their daughter. This is for the best. Taejun also let go of all his fantasies about Sora and can now live a peaceful life. When Taejun returned home, he could only tell his daughter that her mother had actually gone to heaven and would never come back. Upon hearing this, her daughter burst into tears. Taejun, watching his sad and crying daughter, was heartbroken. He tightly embraced his daughter and also shed tears of pain. But as fate would have it, the heavens love to play tricks. Hayami received a phone call. The other party invited Lucy to star in a TV series. Thinking about the money to be made, Hayami agreed immediately without telling her family. But soon she regretted it, because the heroine who would star in the series with Lucy was none other than Sora. Hayami couldn't believe it and also felt scared. Sora somehow always felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity with the little girl in front of her. Seeing the close interactions between the mother and daughter, Hayami immediately decided to cancel Lucy's participation in the TV series. The director told Hayami that if she could afford the huge compensation, she could cancel the contract at any time. In the end, Hayami, who had no choice, could only let Lucy continue acting with Sora. She told Lucy not to tell her family about the filming, but Lucy told her that she really liked Sora. This made Hayami feel both sad and happy. Lucy kept using her stage name in front of Sora. To express her love for Sora, she drew a picture and signed it with her real name. When Sora learned Lucy's real name, she was momentarily stunned, because the daughter she once abandoned also had that name. Just when she thought she was sharing a name with her daughter, she turned her head and saw Hayami walking past with Lucy. Sora hadn't realized anything yet, but she was curious why Lucy was with Hayami. It made her feel like she had been struck by lightning. She guessed that Lucy was most likely her biological daughter whom she had abandoned. Sora hurriedly got out of the car and tried to catch up to her to confirm, but her mother stopped her. But now her mind was full of her daughter. She could not care about her mother's stop and broke free. Taejun and his sister were having dinner with Lucy. When he looked up, Taejun saw Sora standing outside, staring at Lucy. He understood that Sora had recognized Lucy, but that was not what he wanted right now. Taejun questioned Sora, saying that they had agreed not to see each other again. Sora finally realized that the girl who called herself her sister every day was her daughter, whom she had abandoned without a second thought. Complex emotions filled Sora's entire soul. She walked dazedly into the middle of the road. And then she couldn't hold on any longer and fainted directly. This scene happened to be seen by Si-hoon, the future chairman of the group, who was passing by. Si-hoon found that Sora had lost consciousness and had to pick her up and prepare to take her to the hospital. At that moment, Si-hoon saw a billboard by the roadside, and he realized that the woman in his arms was the celebrity Sora. After learning the news, Sora's parents rushed to the hospital. Fortunately, Sora was resting and was not in any danger. At this time, Yonkyu began to lament that his daughter could not just move into the ward with money. Then he learned from the nurse that Si-hoon had saved his daughter and had already paid all the fees. But this also made Yonkyu and his mother extremely excited. They learned that Si-hoon was not married and was the chairman of a group with hundreds of billions of assets. They even started to plot against Si-hoon. If Sora could marry Si-hoon, their family would really become rich. Yonkyu was very grateful that Sora had awakened and abandoned Taejun and that daughter. So the two mothers went to thank Si-hoon the next day. Unfortunately, Si-hoon was in a meeting and they didn't even get to meet. But they were still very happy. After all, the relationship had been established. Taejun's main job now is to sell shoes on the roadside when the city management is not looking. Suun, a university classmate, has always secretly loved Taejun. I have to say that Taejun really has a connection with the rich girl. Taejun doesn't know that the Suun in front of him is actually also a rich girl. Suun always secretly arranges for someone to go to Taejun's stall to buy shoes. She always doesn't want Taejun to hide and seek every day because of the city management. She suggests renting a storefront, but Taejun doesn't have that kind of money to fulfill that wish. Suun is afraid of hurting Taejun's pride and doesn't directly offer to help. She just implores Taejun to let her work for free. Ever since Sora learned that Lucy was her biological daughter, she couldn't help but cry every time she saw Lucy. A good comedy was made into a tragedy by Sora. But Lucy, who didn't know the truth, didn't know what was wrong with Sora. A sentence from her sister, "Don't cry," finally made Sora unable to hold back the pain in her heart. She was afraid to face her daughter, whom she had abandoned so callously. She got up and ran out. Her mother came to comfort Sora, telling her to control her emotions. Pretend you don't know that child and just go about your business. She never expected that the thing she had been trying to avoid would suddenly appear in front of her. That day, Taejun happened to see an advertisement on TV. The main characters in the advertisement were his daughter and Sora. Taejun couldn't believe it and hurried to the kindergarten to inquire about the situation. The teacher told him that Lucy had not come to school for a week and had gone to film a TV series. At this time, Sora, who had already adjusted her mentality, continued filming with Lucy. Every time they hugged, Sora treated Lucy like a mother. Just then, Taejun arrived at the filming site. Seeing Sora and Lucy embracing each other, he was enraged. Since he had already erased his daughter from his mind, Sora was no longer qualified to be Lucy's mother. Taejun absolutely would not allow Sora to get close to his daughter again, let alone let them develop feelings for each other. He was really afraid that one day his daughter would be hurt by Sora again. Taejun hugged his daughter and left the filming site regardless of the consequences. Looking at their departing backs, Sora's eyes were filled with pain and reluctance. After returning home, the whole family blamed Hayami for secretly letting Lucy go to the filming, and also filming closely with Sora, who had become their family's enemy. Hayami was also very innocent. She didn't know before that Sora would be the lead in that drama. Taejun would not allow Lucy to film the drama with Sora no matter the amount of the penalty. Her mother scolded Hayami severely and then kicked her out of the house. Depressed, Hayami had no choice but to go to the nightclub with her best friend to relieve her anger. But just then, a man started to hit on Hayami. Hayami could not stand it anymore and decided to teach that man a lesson. But just then, another man stumbled and fell on top of Hayami, who was about to lose her temper. What's more, the man's hand accidentally squeezed the center of Hayami's body. Hayami immediately slapped the man. Her best friend was helpless and pointed at the culprit, who really left at a loss. The wronged man was Mrs. Lee's younger brother, Dong Hyun. When Dong Hyun chased after him to seek justice, Hayami had already gotten into a taxi and left. However, their fate was intertwined from this moment onwards. The director implored Taejun to let Lucy continue to appear in the TV series. Otherwise, all the investment and the hard work of everyone would be for nothing. But what Taejun cared about was his own daughter. Everything else was none of his business. His brother Jaeho also came to persuade Taejun because the director was his colleague. The current drama was related to the future of his colleague, because Jaeho had been hit by a previous film and knew the feeling of being unable to live after a failure. He still hoped that Taejun could let Lucy finish the play. On the one hand was his daughter, and on the other was the future of many people. This made Taejun suddenly face a difficult decision. His daughter was everything to him and could never be lost. In the end, Taejun decided to sacrifice the public to protect his daughter. Just as the director did not give up and continued to beg, Lucy ran out of the room at this time and told her father that she really liked filming. Since his daughter liked it and the future of many people was at stake, Taejun could only reluctantly agree. The director was immediately overjoyed, thanked him repeatedly, and promised to minimize Lucy's scenes so that she could finish early. Suun never waited for Taejun to come to the stall and worried that something might have happened to him. Just as she was about to call and ask, Taejun arrived in his car. Suun's heart instantly fell to the ground when she heard that the man she had always secretly loved had a daughter. But unexpectedly, in the next second, Taejun even asked Suun to set up the stall alone today and then took Lucy to go film. Suun is now thinking, could it be that the love I've been pursuing is just a mirage? On the set, Taejun kept staring at Sora's every move with Lucy. Those eyes full of hatred and loathing made Sora's entire soul tremble. She simply couldn't get into the filming in a normal state. Lucy asks Sora what's wrong with him. Concerned, Sora approaches Lucy lovingly, saying he's fine. But when he sees Taejun's warning glare, Sora has to distance himself. Jinki can only persuade Taejun to let Hayami bring Lucy to the shoot. Otherwise, Sora will be under too much pressure to film normally. But this is now Taejun's bottom line. He must keep an eye on Sora's every move with Lucy. He refuses outright. On the other side, the daughter of a wealthy family is selling shoes on the street in order to pursue love. But now Suun, who has a complex in her heart, has no mood to sell shoes. When Taejun returns after being busy, it is already late. Suun decides to ask about the matter. If it doesn't work, then end it early. Taejun does not hide the fact that he has had a tragic relationship. The only thing he hides is that his daughter's mother is still alive, but he says she is dead. Hearing this, Suun's heart suddenly brightens. She still has a chance. She happily talked to Taejun about Lucy, saying that Lucy was really cute and sensible. She asked Taejun to bring Lucy out to play with her more often in the future. Suun knew that if she wanted to be with Taejun, she first had to win over Lucy's heart. But Taejun, who did not know Suun's heart, would later tell a lie that would cause Suun so much pain. Meanwhile, Yeonkyu had always wanted his two daughters to marry into chaebol families. Sora can now try her luck with the chairman of Myri Group. Yeonkyu is still most worried about the marriage of her eldest daughter Sora. 5 years ago, Sora and Donghyun did not work out. Sora loves Jaeho and is not willing to listen to her father's advice. However, today, Donghyun needs Yeonkyu's help to approve a piece of land, so he wants to marry Sora again. Yeonkyu once again brought this up this time. Sora still didn't want to say directly that she already had a boyfriend. In that case, Yeonkyu had no choice but to ask Sora to bring her boyfriend back tomorrow to see. Sora dared not bring Jaeho back. Taejun was the best example. She had always wanted to wait until Jaeho's career was successful before formally introducing him to her family. This time, Sora could not delay any longer. The next day, she mustered up the courage and finally brought Jaeho to the house. When Yeonkyu saw Jaeho, he felt like he was looking at the devil and fainted. Luckily, his mother was experienced and quickly sprayed Yeonkyu with saliva. But when Yeonkyu saw Jaeho again, he fainted again. The two boys he despised all his life had ruined his two beloved daughters. His younger daughter had just escaped from the mold, but his older daughter had fallen into that evil lair again. This really made the old father feel that life is not worth living. Sura knew that her father would be very unhappy when he saw that her boyfriend was Jaeho, but she never imagined that her father's reaction would be so extreme. She could only ask Jaeho to leave first. Once, Sara had no regrets about her love for the poor boy Taejun, regardless of her parents' feelings. Now, Sura is also determined not to give up on her love for Jaeho. I just don't know if Sura will follow in Sora's footsteps, but at this moment, the two of them encourage each other. Only by experiencing the storm can you see the beautiful rainbow. After Yeonkyu woke up, he questioned Sura about when she started dating Jaeho. Sura told him that she had been dating Jaeho since she was with Taejun. If it weren't for her father's constant disdain for Jaeho, Sura said that she would have married him long ago. Seeing her father's current appearance of extreme unacceptability, Sura decided to make the same decision as Sora in the beginning for the sake of love. She wanted to leave this family. This was a matter that made Yeonkyu so angry that he could not accept it. He already resents Taejun and his family for ruining his youngest daughter. Now Jaeho is ruining things again by preparing to marry the eldest daughter of a chaebol family. Yeonkyu is ready to kill. His mother persuades Sura to understand her father's feelings. He only wants what is best for his children. He hopes they can live a happy life. Sura says she cannot break up with Jaeho. Her mother doesn't know what to do about this situation, so she drank a glass of strong liquor. While drunk, she went directly to Myung's house and found Jaeho to vent her pent-up anger in a crazy outburst. After this incident, Myung finally knew that her son was in a relationship with Sura. Taejun and his granddaughter Lucy Sara were left with such a cruel ending. Myung said that she could not let her eldest son take the same path as Taejun. She scolded Jaeho for going with Sara without considering Taejun and Lucy's situation. But love is selfish, and Jaeho couldn't care about other people's feelings. Lucy and Sara were both sent to the hospital for treatment due to food allergies during filming. Sara tightly held her daughter's hand and said countless times, "I'm sorry." Taejun saw this and directly pulled her hand to the side. After many days of contact with Lucy, Sara finally began to feel sorry for having once abandoned her daughter ruthlessly. She also knew that she had once again ruthlessly hurt Lucy when she needed her most. Taejun now harbored nothing but hatred in his heart for Sara. When he learned that his brother was going to be with Sara, he strongly opposed it. Taejun absolutely would not allow Lucy to know the truth that her mother had not died but abandoned her. If Jaeho and Sara got together, it would connect the two families. Then Lucy will sooner or later find out the truth that her mother abandoned her. He is afraid that Lucy will suffer irreparable psychological pain. Taejun also raised another cruel issue, because his current situation is the best explanation. Sura's father has always looked down on you and will never accept you as a son-in-law. Jaeho knows the relationship between them only too well, but the magic of love is truly terrifying. Jaeho cannot give up on his beloved Sura no matter what. Sura feels the same way as Jaeho. The next day, she even took the initiative to ask Jaeho to bring her home to formally greet Myung. Sura also apologized to Myung on behalf of her family for her extreme behavior. Myung was very direct and did not accept the apology or accept this daughter-in-law. However, Taejun did not want to be selfish and let his brother give up Sora because of him and his daughter. After all, he is an outsider with no blood ties in this family. He cannot forgive Sora's family for hurting himself and his daughter, but he cannot hinder Jaeho's happiness. Taejun decided to take Lucy and move far away from this family. Their mother scolded both sons for even mentioning the topic of moving out. She could not let her family fall apart like this. Unexpectedly, Sara also allowed Sora and Jaeho to be together. She already felt deeply guilty about her daughter Lucy and was extremely distressed. She could not get involved with Taejun because of Sora and Jaeho. That way, every time she saw Lucy, she would feel even more miserable. Sura understood Sora's painful feelings very well, but since it had already happened, she said she could not let it ruin her happiness. Sura hoped that the two sisters could work together to find a way to overcome all the difficulties and be happy together. But Sura thought about the harm she had done to Lucy and simply could not think of any way to make Lucy forgive her. In the end, she could only say sorry to her sister. Ever since Sara learned about Lucy's background, she had come to cherish her daughter. Although Lucy still doesn't know that her beautiful sister is her biological mother. Perhaps it is the bond of blood that allows Lucy to feel a kind of motherly love in Sora that she has never felt before. She really likes Sara and wants to chat with her when she is bored. So Sara secretly gave Lucy her phone number. With Taejun's warning, Sara dares not blatantly contact her daughter. Sora, who already regrets abandoning her daughter, can only secretly look at her child. But Lucy doesn't know this. When she gets bored, she just takes her father's phone and calls Sora. But before she can say anything, Taejun finds out and tells Lucy not to call that unrelated woman in the future. But young Lucy doesn't know anything about this. She just knows that Sora and she like each other and that good friends should keep in touch. But her father's actions make Lucy wonder why he hates Sora so much. Subsequently, Sora received a scolding phone call from Taejun, asking her why she had given Lucy her phone number. Taejun's strong attitude made Sora feel very aggrieved, but she couldn't find a reason to be angry. After all, it was she who had abandoned her daughter and said she didn't want to see her again. Whenever it was quiet late at night, Sara would think of the happy and warm images of her being with her daughter while filming. Her heart felt deeply sorry for Lucy as if it were being torn apart by a knife. So the next day on set, Sara secretly gave Lucy a cell phone, so that Lucy could call without using her father's phone, and they could secretly stay in touch. But how could a child of just a few years old keep a cell phone hidden at all times? It was quickly discovered by Taejun. At once, Taejun knew that this must be the cell phone that Sara gave Lucy to keep in touch. This finally made him unable to bear it and feel furious. Helpless Taejun, fearing that his daughter would be hurt, had to lie to her that her mother had died to hide the fact that he had been abandoned. Now Sara not only appeared by Lucy's side, but also wanted to maintain contact and build a relationship with her. Taejun immediately slammed the phone on the ground. Sara said, "If you dare to stop me from seeing Lucy, I will tell the truth." After hearing this, Taejun gave her a loud slap. This slap made Sora start to pour out her grievances from when she had been with Taejun. You are a selfish person who only cares about yourself. I once gave up my life in a wealthy family for love and got pregnant out of wedlock. You never considered how painful that was for me. And you're still the same. You're not thinking about Lucy. By forcibly preventing me from contacting Lucy, you are selfishly hurting Lucy. Taejun felt disgusted by these words. Why didn't I consider your feelings once? It was you who vowed that you could endure all hardships for love. I worked hard every day to earn money to make your life better. When I was about to collapse, I still gritted my teeth and came back to serve you. And I never complained because I knew that was my responsibility. If you hadn't been able to bear the suffering and abandoned yourself and your newborn daughter, would my daughter be living such a miserable life today? She envies other people's children who have their mother's company every day. She dreams of getting a warm hug from her mother. But Sora is determined to keep in touch with Lucy. She hopes Taejun will just let things be. Taejun says this is impossible and leaves. Sora feels the pain in her heart as she touches her bruised face. She doesn't know what to do anymore. She doesn't understand why her father is stopping her from getting along with Sora. Lucy is angry at home. Taejun has to tell Lucy that she will understand when she grows up. But his daughter says, "You're just a bad father," and leaves. Taejun, who is not understood by his daughter, is also extremely helpless. Youngkyu absolutely will not allow his daughter to marry Jaeho and sully the family's reputation. He wants to send his daughter to a chaebol family to live a happy life as a daughter-in-law. So Youngkyu secretly approached Jaeho's film investor and, through coercion and bribery, got the investor to withdraw his investment in Jaeho's film. This was the only chance Jaeho had been waiting for to turn his life around and fulfill his lifelong dream. But Youngkyu's evil machinations deprived Jaeho of this opportunity. For Jaeho, this not only means losing his lifelong dream, but also the chance to marry Sura. Unaware that Youngkyu is behind this, Jaeho pretends to be happy in front of Sura. Sura is also extremely sad that Jaeho has lost this opportunity to fulfill his dream. She is not afraid that Jaeho will not be able to support her, but she is truly sad that Jaeho has lost the chance to fulfill his dream. Unexpectedly, when he returned home, his father did not hide what he had done from Sura, and told Sura to go tell Jaeho right away that no matter how hard he tried, he would never have a chance to turn things around. Sura felt that her father's actions had ruined someone's dream and it was unreasonable. However, from Youngkyu's perspective, Jaeho had provoked him first. In short, he absolutely would not allow Sura to marry Jaeho. That dirty guy. This truth pierced Sura's heart. She never thought that she was the one who let Jaeho miss the chance to fulfill his lifelong dream. In order to help Jaeho, Sura had to choose to sacrifice herself. She understood that her father's goal was to make her break up with Jaeho, so she directly agreed. However, the condition was for her father to take out money and invest it in Jaeho's movie. Youngkyu finally achieved the result he wanted. He readily took out the money, but he also proposed a condition, which was for Sura to marry Chaebol's son Donghyun. Sura agreed without hesitation to all of her father's demands. However, her father finally gave a warning. If Sura feels like breaking the contract halfway through, he will not only take back the money, but also make Jaeho pay an even more painful price. So in order for Jaeho to realize his dream, Sura could only end up breaking up with him. Jaeho believes that it is because of his failed career that has led to this breakup and tries his best to retain it. But everything goes against his wishes. He can only watch in despair as his beloved girlfriend resolutely leaves. Jaeho, who had failed in both his career and his love life, got drunk and returned home, overwhelmed with grief. Jaeho told his family the bad news as if it were good news, and hugged Taejun. "I broke up with Sura, so don't even think about moving out." He also told Taejun not to worry about the breakup with Sura, which was not because of him. Although Jaeho appeared happy in front of his family, they knew that Jaeho's heart was hurting like 1,000 arrows piercing it. Jaeho then returned to his room, where he couldn't hold back his tears. His father was relieved to learn that Sura had finally broken up with Jaeho. He hurriedly began to call Donghyun, saying that Sura was willing to start dating him again. After hanging up the phone, his father repeatedly told Sura that since she had made up her mind this time, she should make progress quickly and marry into the Chaebol family as soon as possible. Sura, who was self-deceived, thought that Sura broke up with Jaeho because of her, and felt very sorry for her sister. Sura said it wasn't because of her, and asked her not to feel burdened. Sura was relieved and hugged Sura to comfort her, hoping that her sister would not suffer too much and live a happy life. Sura also sincerely hoped that Sura could find true happiness. The next day, the lovelorn Jaeho didn't want to go anywhere. At this time, the director, who had already received the investment money, came to tell Jaeho some good news. The movie you wrote can start shooting normally. You have received 550 million won in investment money. It turned out that the extra 50 million won was from Sora. Jaeho immediately found Sora and thought that his career was back on track. Then Sora would definitely come back to him. Sora held back the pain in her heart and could only congratulate Jaeho on becoming a director. We can't go back anymore because I already have someone to marry. Live a good life and don't think about me. The happiest person at this time was Youngkyu. Just as he was waiting at the traffic light, he saw Lucy crying alone on the side of the road in the distance. Out of kindness, Youngkyu took Lucy home. When her mother saw Lucy, she was shocked and couldn't believe her eyes. She immediately asked her son if Lucy was his illegitimate daughter. Then she took a closer look and realized that Lucy was the partner with whom Sora had been filming. Jinky was so shocked that she sat down on the ground. She was the only one who knew the truth, so she tried her best to suppress her panic. Youngkyu, who didn't know the truth, also really liked Lucy and felt that Lucy looked like his daughter. May. While Jinky watched this harmonious scene, her heart was filled with discord and she was extremely worried. Sora immediately sent a message to Taejun in panic after learning that her daughter had been brought back home by her father. Taejun also didn't expect this to happen and immediately came to pick up Lucy. Jinky saw that it was Taejun who came and once again lifted her spirits. She absolutely could not let Youngkyu see Taejun and learn Lucy's true identity, so she hurriedly lied that she was Sora's friend Jingji and came to pick up Lucy. She didn't let Youngkyu go out. Unexpectedly, Youngkyu felt sympathy for this child who looked like his daughter but didn't have a mother. Before Lucy left, he wanted to ask what her name was. Jinky quickly told her husband one of Lucy's names. At this time, Taejun outside had already quarreled with Sora. Taejun blamed Sora for why she had brought her child to her house. Sora in turn rebuked Taejun for not watching the child carefully and letting Lucy get lost when she left. If it weren't for the fact that my father happened to see it, do you know how serious the consequences would have been if something happened to Lucy? Taejun said that even if the whole world scolds me, you have no right to scold me. At this time, Jinky brought the child out and quickly asked Taejun to take her away, so as not to let Youngkyu know Lucy's true identity. Then the puzzled Taejun began to lecture Lucy for not listening and running around. Lucy was very aggrieved and told her father in tears that she had not disobeyed him. It turned out that Lucy was sleeping in the car while Taejun was setting up his stall, but when Lucy woke up and saw her father leaving, she followed him. However, there were too many people in the street, so she followed the wrong person. Eventually, she got lost while walking. Taejun then transmitted some safety tips to Lucy when walking outside. Never follow strangers away. Seek help from the police immediately. But Lucy told her father that she followed the uncle because he was Sora's sister's father. At this time, Taejun could see how much Lucy liked and trusted Sora, and Lucy also told her father for sure that she really liked Sora very much. Hearing these words, Taejun's heart was extremely difficult. He was really worried that when Lucy knew that her sister, whom she liked very much, was actually her mother who had already died, and that she had been abandoned by her mother since birth. I wonder how much pain Lucy would have felt at that time. At that moment, Youngkyu was still thinking about Lucy, who had already left. In front of Sora and Jingzi, he scolded Lucy's father for not coming to say thank you before leaving. The next day, during a break from filming, Sora found an opportunity to go to the corner and lovingly remind Lucy to listen to her father in the future and not run around. If you get lost and can't contact your father, contact her. Then your sister will come to your side immediately to protect you. Taejun rushed over. He wanted to scold Sora for her behavior, but Lucy hurriedly stopped him, pleading with her father not to mention Sora's sister. Taejun could only swallow the words back in his mouth. Watching the father and daughter leave, Sora's heart was also full of mixed emotions. The next day, Youngkyu took his daughter to meet her future in-laws. When he saw the hostess, his eyes widened. Then he looked like a shy boy in love when he saw the girl he liked. Even Mrs. Lee's meal made Youngkyu feel so beautiful and graceful. His enchanted eyes unceremoniously wandered over Mrs. Lee's body. In contrast, his own wife was really nothing to compare with her. Mrs. Lee's mother wanted Sora and Donghyun to temporarily live in this house after they got married. Jinky wanted to express her opinion but was stopped by her husband. Youngkyu's little plan was to find a way to spend more time with Mrs. Lee in the future. If his daughter lives here after she gets married, then he can come here every day and see Mrs. Lee, this goddess-like existence, every day. Youngkyu was also thinking about making a good impression on the other party, but unexpectedly, Jinky, who had just eaten too much, emptied her stomach in the toilet, causing the toilet to block. There was nothing he could do, so Jinky secretly called her husband to help unblock the toilet. Youngkyu never expected to do such a thing on such an important day. He tried hard to save face, but unfortunately it didn't go as he hoped. He didn't dare to stay any longer and found an excuse to take his family and leave. But when he left, he couldn't stop thinking about Mrs. Lee. Then he thought about the embarrassing incident in the bathroom and turned and fled. After returning home, Young-kyu was infuriated at what his wife had done. Mrs. Lee hired a professional to unblock the toilet. My mother also teased, saying that it was the first time she had encountered such a novel thing in her life. She also knew why Young-kyu had hurriedly left just now. It was because he felt embarrassed and ashamed. Mrs. Lee smiled and told her mother not to find Young-kyu for the repair fee. Young-kyu was happy that not only had his daughter successfully become engaged to the Chaebol family, but she had also unexpectedly met a woman like Mrs. Lee, who looked like a fairy. However, Sura, who had sacrificed for love, was suffering endless pain. Unexpectedly, at this time, Jae-ho, who knew nothing, also found Sura. He knew that Sura was about to marry Dong-hyun. Even though he was reluctant to let go of this love, he had to end it with a heavy heart. Jae-ho thanked Sura for always being by his side all these years. Although those beautiful times were short, I was truly happy. Although I can no longer have them, I will always remember the good times in my heart. In the end, Jae-ho sincerely wished Sura happiness. However, Jae-ho's words once again painfully pierced Sura's already wounded heart. But in order for Jae-ho to continue his dream of making movies, Sura could only be willing to sacrifice herself. Just as Jae-ho was about to leave in a daze, Young-kyu returned and scolded Jae-ho for having the nerve to say goodbye to Sura. "You're a guy who only makes money off women, and yet you shamelessly ask our Sura to sacrifice herself. Remember that when you become successful, you must come back and thank our Sura." However, at this time, Jae-ho did not fully understand Young-kyu's words, but was a little puzzled. Today is the day Sura and Dong-hyun officially get married. Jae-ho, in a depressed mood, asks the director if there is anything he wants to say to him. The director is very sympathetic towards Jae-ho and finally tells him the truth that Sura gave him the investment money. It was only at this point that Jae-ho finally understood the kind of sacrifice Sura had made for him. He ran like crazy towards Sura's wedding. Sura regretted choosing an emotionless marriage, so he no longer hesitated and resolutely abandoned the man he had married in a white wedding dress and fled the wedding venue in the incredulous eyes of everyone. Sura did not stop for a moment, got into a taxi and went in the direction of his love. Jae-ho then rushed to the wedding venue and learned from the mouths of others the fact that Sura had run away from the wedding. This put his mind at ease. When he hurried back to his house, Sura had been waiting there for a long time. He quickly took off his jacket and put it on Sura, who was shivering with cold. Sura could not let go of Jae-ho, so at the critical moment she chose to elope and pursue her true love. And Gang-tae, who already knew Sura's real reason for getting married, which was to fulfill his dream of making a movie, was also very angry. He didn't want his dream to come true in this way. That would only make him more miserable. Then he would have no courage to live in this world. Fortunately, Sura came to her senses at the last minute and no longer cared about her father's feelings. She returned to Jae-ho's side. Sura's elopement made Mrs. Lee's mother furious. She came to Young-kyu's house, returned all the dowry, and smashed it on the ground. A family background like Mrs. Lee's mother's simply looked down on a family like Young-kyu's, which had a little money. Marrying their daughter was completely a way for their family to climb the social ladder. Now, they even dared to joke about their son's marriage. Facing Mrs. Lee's scolding, Young-kyu's family knew they were in the wrong, so they stood there respectfully, apologizing cautiously. But even so, Mrs. Lee still soothed the family. After a while, Young-kyu slumped to the ground, feeling like he would rather be dead. The thought that Jae-ho was the cause of all this made him furious again. This time, it was because of his eldest daughter that he once again rushed to a place he never wanted to come in his life. Young-kyu grabbed Jae-ho and accused him of being a liar. He raised his hand and wanted to teach Jae-ho a lesson. This time, Jae-ho held his head high without the slightest bit of fear. Myeong stood by, anxious to protect her son, and claimed that she was going to call the police. Jinky didn't want to make a big deal out of it and quickly pulled her husband away from here. Back in the car, Young-kyu sat with his mind still unable to calm down. He never expected that his eldest daughter would choose the same path as his youngest daughter. Not only did this cause him to suffer old wounds, but he also lost face. In the future, he will never be able to meet Mrs. Lee, the goddess, again. Jinky saw that her husband's emotions had gotten out of control, so she quickly stopped the car and tried to comfort him, but she didn't know what to say, and she also shed tears of pain. Myeong decided to allow Jae-ho to date Sora after learning the truth. After all, which woman in the world would be willing to make such a sacrifice for her son? If she went and stopped it, That would be wrong of her as his mother. But then a new problem arose, because Taejun cannot bring Lucy to live with Sora in this place. In order to prevent Lucy from knowing that Sora is her mother, Taejun decides to move out. Jae-ho feels that Taejun is acting on impulse and argues with him. Mayeon still says the same thing. No one is leaving this house unless I die. Jae-ho, the biological son, or Taejun, the adopted son. Mayeon says that neither one is allowed to leave. Taejun's heart is really deeply bound up. His mother has no choice but to enlighten him. There are no secrets that last forever in this world. Just as I didn't want you to know that you weren't my biological son, in the end you still found out. After all, Sora is Lucy's biological mother. No matter how hard you try to hide a secret, it will eventually come to light. Rather than choosing to escape now in fear that Lucy will be hurt if she finds out the truth, it is better to prepare yourself now for that day. The only thing you have to do is hold Lucy's hand tightly. Taejun's heart was finally opened by his mother's words, and he also began to support his brother's relationship with Sora. The two brothers hugged each other and vowed that they would not let their mother worry about them anymore. The next day, Sora went to the Chaebul's house to apologize, but Mrs. Lee's mother poured tea in her face. Donghyun was also very angry and threatened that he would not forgive her or see her again. In order to protect his love, Jae-ho took the money back from the director. Sora immediately gave it to his mother. Her mother was afraid to accept it because accepting the money would mean Sora severing ties with them. Things had come to this. Faced with her father's strength and paranoia, Sora had no turning back. Even if it meant severing ties, she had to pursue the love she yearned for. Jinki threw the check at her half-dead husband. Looking at the check in her hand, Yeonkyu of course understood what it meant. His beloved daughter, whom he had doted on like a pearl, had chosen to abandon him. Sora and Lucy are filming together, and the end is approaching. Then Sora will no longer have the opportunity to be with Lucy openly in the future. After all these days of contact, Sora has become attached to Lucy as a daughter, and today's scene happens to be a story of separation. Sora and Lucy express their true feelings in this story, completely immersing themselves in it. Although it's just a scene, the emotions expressed by Sora and Lucy just now are completely from the heart. Taejun, who witnessed all this, also had mixed emotions. The crew members standing around watching saw Sora's superb acting. Everyone couldn't help but applaud to acknowledge Sora's acting skills. Seeing Sora in front of her, unable to recognize her and unable to make up for the harm she had caused her daughter, she could no longer control her emotions, covered her face in tears and ran away from the scene. At this time, Taejun received a phone call and also left the scene, leaving Lucy alone to rest in preparation for the last scene. At this moment, a plank of wood fell loose and smashed towards Lucy, who was reciting her lines. Fortunately, Sora, who had managed to compose herself at the last minute, came back and saw the scene. Without any hesitation, she ran up and used her body to protect Lucy underneath. Sora immediately checked to see if Lucy was hurt. Luckily, Lucy was unharmed under her protection. However, she had injured her arm and was bleeding profusely, but she didn't care. After returning home, Taejun recalled the scene of Sora risking her life to save Lucy, and her heart was full of worry. She wondered how Lucy would feel when she learned the truth. However, Sora returned home with her wound bandaged and a relieved smile on her face. She felt that this was her responsibility as a mother. As long as her daughter was safe and sound, it didn't matter how much she had to pay. That day, Taejun, Soo-eun, and another good friend, Jae-hwan, found a studio, where the three of them prepared to expand their business and start a new venture. Just as Taejun was happy about this, he suddenly received some tragic news. Lucy had been abducted by Sora. It turned out that after the filming was over, Sora secretly took Lucy on a trip. She wanted to make up for the fact that she had not fulfilled her responsibilities as a mother to Lucy for the past 5 years. The place where the two of them came was a place full of good memories from when Sora and Taejun were in love. Ever since she made that heartless decision back then, Sora had felt an invisible pressure and a sense of guilt in her heart. At this moment, she finally experienced the kind of happiness she had with her daughter. Taejun mistakenly thought that Sora had kidnapped Lucy. He hurried to the destination through Sora's ticket purchase record. However, he couldn't find Sora and Lucy until nightfall. Meanwhile, Sora had gone to the homestay where she and Taejun had created Lucy. Taejun eventually found the place by instinct. He was furious with Sora for what she had done, and without a word, he was about to take Lucy and leave. Sora begged Taejun to let Lucy stay the night. Taejun was unmoved and angrily left with his daughter in his arms, but he still missed the last ferry back. Sora, who was right behind him, was overjoyed. Once, fate had also made them miss the ferry and they had to spend a beautiful night here. Now the heavens have once again done her a great favor. Now Taejun cannot leave, then she can naturally stay the night with Lucy. But unexpectedly, even if they cannot go back, Taejun still does not allow her to stay the night with Lucy. Today happens to be a holiday, there are simply no more spare rooms. Taejun is not giving up, he wanted to go elsewhere to ask, but Sora, who saw an opportunity, immediately followed. Sora stopped him and said there are no rooms anywhere now. It's freezing cold. If Lucy catches a cold, it'll be a problem. So she suggested that Taejun stay in the room she had booked for one night. Taejun didn't dare to let Lucy suffer in such cold weather and had to listen to Sora's suggestion. With the help of the heavens, the three of them ended up sharing a room. In the past, they would play games at least 10 times a night in this room, but now, they didn't know what to say to each other and just stared at each other from afar. Sora broke the silence and spoke first. She had brought them to this situation, but she still explained why she had abandoned Taejun and her daughter so ruthlessly. Because I really couldn't continue living in such poverty. If I didn't leave with my parents, I felt like I would die the next second, that's why I wanted to forget everything. But what Sora never expected was that while she was trying to forget everything, Taejun had raised her daughter so well. Seeing her daughter, Sora realized how wrong her decision to abandon her daughter had been. Taejun didn't say a word to Sora. After all, it was already done and had come to this. 5 years of bitterness and pain, and Sora's previous decisive words about not seeing her daughter again really made Taejun not know what kind of nice things to say to Sora. But he didn't stop Sora from hugging Lucy and sleeping. Not for Sora's sake, but for Lucy's sake. Let Lucy, who has been missing her mother, sleep quietly in her mother's arms for a good night's sleep. He couldn't sleep, but kept thinking about the good times when he and Sora were in love. He would never forget any of the scenes that had happened. Even if the sky collapsed and the earth dried up, the deeper the love, the deeper the hatred, and the more he thought about it, the more it hurt him to the core. He also reflected on whether he really hadn't done well enough to understand Sora in the beginning. Taejun thought and thought, looking at the two most important people in his life, and finally shed tears of pain. He tightly covered his mouth to prevent Sora from discovering this vulnerable side of him. The next day, Sora still apologized for taking the baby away without telling him. He said goodbye to Lucy for the last time. We may not be able to see each other again in the future. Where are you going, sister? I'm going to a very, very far away place. In the days without your sister, you must listen to your father well, okay? I'm sorry, Lucy. Lucy didn't understand what Sora's apology meant. One last hug. Unable to control her emotions any longer, Sora turned around and ran away with tears in her eyes. Taejun hugged Lucy and left in the opposite direction. Changmin had been sponsoring the daughter of a close friend, but this scene was captured by the mother-in-law, who was keeping a close eye on the situation. She immediately thought that Changmin had betrayed her daughter. The photos taken were also inadvertently seen by Mrs. Lee. Mrs. Lee was shocked to see her husband so intimate with a young girl. She recognized the girl in the photo as Changmin's daughter from his deceased driver. Her mother directly told Mrs. Lee that she suspected Changmin of having a woman on the side. The next day, Mrs. Lee's mother took Soo-young home and without saying a word, poured 500-degree boiling water over Soo-young's face. Soo-young was not given the chance to explain and was directly framed by Mrs. Lee's mother as an immoral woman. Driven by this, Mrs. Lee also believed that the truth was as her mother said. This made Mrs. Lee feel heartbroken, and her mother was even more worried about whether Soo-young would get pregnant with Changmin's child. If Mrs. Lee, who could not give birth to a child, was definitely abandoned by Changmin and lost her current life, Changmin soon learned about this matter. But his mother-in-law thought he had betrayed Mrs. Lee. No matter how Changmin explained now, Mrs. Lee just believed her mother's words. This also made Changmin feel extremely powerless and began to be disappointed in his mother-in-law and wife. An emotional Mrs. Lee smashed things in the study. Changmin felt even more powerless when he saw this and didn't want to make any more unnecessary explanations. Changmin wanted to leave this home that made her feel oppressed. His mother-in-law hurriedly stopped him at this time, saying that Soo-young was only dating him for his money and that he must remain vigilant. Changmin just laughed ironically at this and helplessly left the house. His mother-in-law was more afraid of Changmin leaving her daughter, but this caused a misunderstanding that caused a rift in their relationship. And Mrs. Lee, under the misunderstanding of her mother, also felt more and more that she could not bear children, which led to her husband's ultimate betrayal. In this way, the rift grew larger and larger, and Changmin also increasingly did not want to stay in this family and continue living. It was at this time that Changmin met Myung, the adoptive mother of his former classmate Taejun. Myung did not know that Changmin was now the president of a chaebol group. Changmin found comfort in Myung and felt much happier. This also made Changmin think of Myung whenever he encountered any family troubles. He would even ask her out for drinks and chat. This was the only way Changmin could let go of the pressure in his heart. Coincidentally, Myung was Mrs. Lee's personal masseuse. The two had a good relationship. When Mrs. Lee was unhappy, She would also seek Mayan out to pour out her heart and relieve her worries. However, Mayan did not know about the relationship between Mrs. Lee and Changmin. The misunderstanding caused by the mother-in-law finally made Changmin put his trust in another person. Changmin, who could no longer bear it, finally proposed to Mrs. Lee for a divorce. Changmin did what he said and packed his bags to leave the house. The mother-in-law was extremely anxious. This was not the result she wanted. She even lay directly on the ground pretending to be sick. Changmin had no choice but to return to the study, and his mother kept telling Mrs. Lee in the room not to agree to a divorce no matter what happened. She knew very well that if the two got a divorce, she would lose everything she had now. Then her mother-in-law once again asked someone to keep an eye on Changmin's every move. Changmin is now afraid to go back to his own home, so he comes to Mayan to chat. Mayan, who has been single for so many years, also enjoys being with Changmin, who is easy to talk to and knows how to take care of people. After Mayan happily returned home, she looked at the situation and realized that today was the anniversary of her dead husband's death. Jinky secretly came to her mother-in-law in the middle of the night to check if she was still breathing, and found that she was still breathing but was just sleeping soundly. Then she tiptoed over to her mother-in-law's safe. As the daughter-in-law of a wealthy man, she had no money to spend, so she set her sights on her mother-in-law's safe. The money-loving mother-in-law probably sensed something, and woke up from her sleep, seeing a dark figure in front of her safe. She panicked and thought that a thief had come into the house. Although Jinky was scared, the money in the safe was even more important. The mother-in-law didn't care about that and gathered her courage to pick up a basin and smashed it directly on Jinky's head. Youngkyu rushed over as soon as he heard the noise. After turning on the lights, the mother-in-law and Youngkyu realized that it was a thief. The mother-in-law blamed her daughter-in-law for sneaking into her room in the middle of the night and trying to steal her safe. As the saying goes, it is hard to guard against a thief in the family. Youngkyu had no choice but to lie to his wife, saying that there were just some old clothes of no value in the safe. But what Youngkyu and his mother-in-law didn't know was that Jinky had already known that there were not only tons of gold bars in the safe, but also a huge amount of cash. What's more, she directly said that no matter what method was used, the safe must be broken open and the money inside obtained. This made Youngkyu and his mother-in-law worry even more. That is their private money, which their son and daughter must not be allowed to steal. And the reason Jinky is so short of money is that she has to become a thief to break into her mother-in-law's vault. It's all because her eldest daughter Sura chose the poor boy for love. Jinky is always worried that Sura is suffering with Jaeho over there and being bullied by Mayang, so she has decided to prepare some dowry and send some money over there first. That way, her daughter can live a little better over there. However, although Jinky is the daughter-in-law of this family, she does not have any rights to control the money. Every day, she asks her husband for money for her daily expenses, so Jinky can only ask her husband for money to prepare a dowry for Sura. Youngkyu is still angry at Sura for abandoning him and says he will not give her any money, so Jinky has no choice but to hit on the idea of the mother-in-law's vault. Jinky is also very helpless in this family. She has no rights at all and is just like a servant. The mother-in-law is afraid that Jinky will try to break into the vault again, so she comes up with a plan to get rid of Jinky. She gives Jinky 5 million won and tells her to buy Sura a dowry. She warns Jinky not to ever try to break into the vault again, or she will call the police and have her arrested. Sura doesn't know how to cook the fish she just bought. She wants to impress her mother-in-law and do a good job, but the reality is cruel. Jinky saw her long-cherished daughter's face bloom with joy, but when she saw her precious daughter looking like a housewife, her smile instantly disappeared. And helplessly, Jinky had to help her daughter prepare the fish in a few simple steps. Jinky, who was worried about her daughter, handed Mayang the 5 million won. Since her daughter had chosen their son, Jinky could only admit to this. The 5 million won was then her daughter's dowry. She hoped Mayang would not be biased and be kind to Sura. Mayang didn't want the money. Jinky didn't care and just got up and left. But Mayang didn't say anything about the money. She also didn't hold any prejudice against Sura. She told Sura to use the money to help Jaeho wherever he needed it. Mayang's actions also touched Sura's heart. When Jinky got home, she complained about Sura in front of her mother-in-law. Her precious daughter, who never did anything at home, now wanted to cook. Jinky is very distressed that her daughter chose to marry a poor family. On the other side, Lucy is deliberately sick in the hospital in order to see Sora. As soon as Sora arrives at the hospital, Lucy cries out of grievance. Lucy has always fantasized that Sora could become her mother. However, she does not know that Sora is actually her biological mother, who she thought had died. Perhaps it is because blood is thicker than water. Lucy has always been able to clearly feel that longing maternal love in Sora. After Sora arrived, Lucy's appetite suddenly improved and her spirits returned. She also made a plea that she hoped to go to the playground with Sora to fulfill her wish, because Lucy had always longed to be able to go to the playground to play with her parents like other children. Taejun, the father, saw his daughter's dependence on Sora with his own eyes. He knew that there were some things he could not stop. For the sake of his daughter, he would let nature take its course. Finally, he agreed to Lucy's request to go to the playground with her and Sora for the day. On this day, they were like a happy family. Whether it was Taejun, Sora, or Lucy, they were all immersed in this sea of joy. Under Lucy's leadership, the distance between Taejun and Sora, which had been pulled apart, also inexplicably drew closer. It was as if the two of them had the same heart-fluttering feeling they had when they were in love. Beautiful times are always short. In the car on the way home, Sora and Taejun both had mixed feelings. Sora was very grateful that Taejun had agreed to let him have a fun day with his daughter. The feeling of happiness today made Sora even less willing to not see Lucy in the future. But Sora also knew that her abandonment of her daughter had disqualified her from being Lucy's mother, even if she was reluctant. Sora decided that she would never come to see Lucy again. Tears of pain flowed down her cheeks. She dried them away, but they flowed again. Taejun saw it all, but didn't know what to say. Sora was at home, holding a photo of Lucy and thinking about her when her father found her. When he looked at the date on the photo, it was from the previous day. This made her father suddenly furious. Yeonkyu was afraid that Sora would renew her old feelings with Taejun because of her daughter Lucy. Otherwise, both of his daughters had betrayed him. He also hopes that Sora will develop a relationship with Sehun, the chairman of Myri Group, and marry him. At this time, her father directly warned Sora that she was never allowed to see Lucy and Taejun again. After her father left, Sora picked up Lucy's photo with a heavy heart, her eyes full of tears of helplessness and pain. But unexpectedly, Lucy made a bold move at this time. Since the visit to the amusement park, Lucy has missed Sora even more. On this day, after Taejun dropped Lucy off at kindergarten, but Lucy didn't go inside the kindergarten. Instead, she watched her father leave and ran away from the kindergarten alone. She got on the bus and went to find her beloved Sora. When Taejun received a call from the kindergarten teacher, it was already too late. At that time, Sora was having dinner with Sehun. Sehun had a good impression of Sora and was preparing to give her an expensive necklace. Just then, Sora received a call from the director. It turned out that Lucy had gone to the film set and, not finding Sora, had asked the director to call her. Hearing that her daughter had come all this way to find her, Sora couldn't care about her date with Sehun and left casually, giving a reason. Sehun, who was left standing there with the necklace, didn't know what to do. Sora rushed back to the film set and met Lucy. Learning that Lucy had taken the bus alone, she was both emotional and worried. Taejun also arrived here and was very angry with Lucy for secretly sneaking away to see Sora this time. He was so afraid that something would happen to his daughter on the way. On the way back, Sora recalled the scene when she once abandoned Lucy and left with her father. She remembered Taejun coming to persuade her to go back and saying that Lucy could not live without her and she threatened to die rather than go back. Now Sora finally knows what a wrong decision she made. If she hadn't done that, Lucy wouldn't be living such a painful life without her mother. Time cannot be turned back. Even if she regrets it, it's meaningless. Now she can only repent for her mistake with tears of endless regret. Seeing Sora in such pain, Taejun couldn't bear to watch. He also understood that the cycle between Sora and Lucy could not be stopped now. The more they tried to stop it, the more they would hurt Lucy. So Taejun finally did not interfere and allowed Sora to see Lucy whenever she wanted. But the prerequisite was that Lucy must never know that she was Sora's daughter. Being able to continue seeing Lucy was already something that Sora longed for but could not ask for. Sora promised herself that she would always be by her daughter's side as her sister. So in the days that followed, whenever Sora had some free time, she would take Lucy out to play. When Sora returned Lucy from the outing, she happened to see Taejun and Suwon in an intimate scene. This made Sora feel inexplicably jealous. Sora asked Taejun, "Is that your girlfriend?" Taejun said, "She's just a colleague I work with." This made Sora feel inexplicably relieved. Unexpectedly, Sehun had been waiting at home for a long time when Sora returned. Sehun wanted to give Sora the necklace he hadn't given her before. This made Yeonkyu and the others very excited, thinking that there should be no problem with Sora and Sehun getting together. But unexpectedly, Sora's mind was filled with the images of Lucy and Taejun at this time. She simply wasn't in the mood and went straight back to her room. Grandma hurried over to scold Sora for her lack of manners and warned her not to keep thinking about Lucy, lest she ruin her relationship with Sehun. Her mother was also extremely anxious. Her eldest daughter had already done that, and she didn't want Sora to repeat the same mistake and meet Lucy again, upsetting her current mood. That day, Taejun's newly opened company finally received a large order. He happily shared the joy with everyone, but he didn't know that this was a conspiracy that would put him in mortal danger. And this person was Mrs. Lee, who had just taken over as the chairman after driving her husband out of office. Mrs. Lee was not only targeting Taejun this time, but also all of Taejun's family members. The reason Mrs. Lee, in her capacity as the president, had to do such a despicable thing was because Mrs. Lee's mother had discovered through surveillance that Changmin had recently stopped going home and was spending time with Myung, and it seemed that their relationship was not an easy one. That wasn't the thing that made Mrs. Lee the angriest, was that she had regarded Myung as her best friend. She had always confided in Myung about her discord with her husband, but little did she know that the woman who had always walked with her husband was Myung. Myung later finally learned that Changmin actually came from a wealthy family, and that her wife was her best friend Mrs. Lee. This was a bit hard for Myung to accept. If she had known that Changmin already had a family, she would never have had anything to do with him. Myung explained to Mrs. Lee that she and Changmin were just casual friends and nothing had happened. Changmin also came out to clarify, but Mrs. Lee didn't believe him and began to hate Myung immensely, from best friend to enemy. Through her investigation, Mrs. Lee learned that Hyami and Taejun were related to her company. If she wanted to get back at Myung, she would have to start with Myung's child. First, she fired Hyami, who worked for her company, for no reason. Then she deliberately told someone to place an order for 5,000 pairs of sneakers with Taejun's company. When Taejun finished making the shoes and was ready to ship them, Mrs. Lee found an excuse to say that there was a problem with Taejun's company and directly cancelled the order. She also made Taejun pay a penalty. This put Taejun's newly established company in a hopeless situation. Taejun was so anxious that he had to personally go to the other company to ask what had gone wrong. The assistant also told Taejun directly that this was the will of the chairman. Mrs. Lee, Hyami, who had been fired for no reason, returned home and told her mother about the problems she and Taejun were facing at the same time. Myung immediately knew that this was all Mrs. Lee's revenge on her. She went straight to Mrs. Lee's house and knelt on the ground. Myung knew that her problems had affected her children. She couldn't just stand by and watch her children suffer because of her. She could only kneel and beg Mrs. Lee to spare her children. If there was to be punishment, it should be for her. The children were innocent. The only one guilty was their mother. Just as Myung was pleading with Mrs. Lee, Taejun, who had also come to see Mrs. Lee, happened to see him. He hurriedly pulled up his mother, who was kneeling on the ground. Mrs. Lee, who had returned to her room, was also distracted. Both she and her mother realized that Taejun was the person who came to the house to ask for the baby that year. Now something like this has happened again. Mrs. Lee just feels that it is really an inescapable evil fate. Unexpectedly, the mother, who had always protected Mrs. Lee and was ruthless, spoke up for Taejun at this time. My mother feels that Mrs. Lee really has gone too far with Taejun. She implores Mrs. Lee not to push them to the wall. Taejun, who has returned home, is very angry at Mrs. Lee's behavior of not treating her mother as a human being. At this time, Hyami thinks of a rumor about her mother in Changmin. No wonder she and Taejun are targeted by Mrs. Lee for no reason. At this time, Jinky also came to correct the children. Tell your mother that she is not what you think. Your mother and Changmin were just friends when they were in elementary school. They didn't even know that Changmin was married. Myung complained bitterly in her room. What had she done to deserve such cruel treatment? She had even dragged her children into it. Thinking about how her children were suffering because of her made Myung feel even more miserable. Hearing his mother's cries of distress, Taejun couldn't bear it anymore and went to find Mrs. Lee, but Mrs. Lee simply would not see him. He had to wait until dawn. Mrs. Lee was getting into her car to go to work when Taejun saw his chance and rushed up to her. He angrily rebuked her for looking down on poor people like himself because she was rich and powerful. Taejun directly warned Mrs. Lee that if she dared to hurt his family, he would never let it go. Looking at Taejun's departing back, Mrs. Lee suddenly felt a sharp pain in her chest for some reason. She went to the hospital for a checkup and received the devastating news that she had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in its advanced stages. The advanced stages meant that Mrs. Lee's life was in the countdown stage. This was hard for Mrs. Lee to accept. She didn't tell anyone about her current situation. At this time, Taejun's business was at risk of bankruptcy due to Mrs. Lee's actions. However, he did not give up and became more and more determined to save his business on his own. That day Sehun and Sora were shopping together when they saw Taejun setting up a street stall selling shoes. However, Sehun had already fallen for Sora by this point. After some investigation, he also learned about Sora and Taejun's relationship and the fact that they had a daughter. Sehun deliberately took Sora to buy shoes so that Taejun would see them. This really made Taejun's heart ache. After all, because of his daughter Lucy. Spending time with Sora these days made him start to fall for her again. Seeing a new man appear by Sora's side inevitably made Taejun feel a little jealous, but Sora didn't feel the slightest bit towards Sehun. Sora, who had returned home, was very confused. Taejun, who had already started his own company, was now selling shoes on the street. She asked her sister Sara, and only then did she find out that Taejun's company had been set up by someone else. Sara decided to help Taejun get through this difficult time. So the next day she paid out of her own pocket for the crew to go to Taejun's place and buy all the shoes back. Not only did she wear a pair herself, but she also gave Taejun a free advertising boost during the shoot. This made Taejun's sneakers instantly known to many people. Taejun knew in his heart that it was Sora's help behind the scenes. Meanwhile, Sehun came to Sora's house and directly confessed his love for Sora to Youngkyu. As long as Youngkyu agrees, Sehun said he will marry Sora and start dating. Youngkyu was suddenly very happy but did not show it. He could not hide Sora's past from Sehun, otherwise it would be a big problem if he knew later. But Sehun understood Youngkyu's worries very well and was also very satisfied with Youngkyu's honesty at this time. So he once again said that he already knew everything about Sora's past, because I have also been divorced and have a child. Hearing this, Youngkyu, who had been worried, finally felt relieved. At this time, Taejun came to find Sora to thank her for her help. Unexpectedly, he just happened to meet Sora seeing Sehun off. Seeing Sehun lovingly holding Sora's hand and reluctant to let go made Taejun feel extremely uncomfortable in his heart, and he turned around directly and left. He threw the gloves he had prepared to give to Sora directly into a trash bag on the side of the road. In the days that followed, whenever Sora had time, she would come to visit Taejun and give him her love. But thinking that Sora already had a new boyfriend, Taejun felt bad and did not want to accept Sora's kindness anymore, so he directly refused. Taejun's sudden change in attitude made Sora wonder what had happened. Watching Taejun leave angrily, Sora hurriedly followed. Just as she was looking around, Taejun suddenly came out of nowhere and took her hand. Taejun questioned her, "What are you doing?" Sora was confused by Taejun's scolding. She wondered when she had ever teased him. She pitied him, but she would never belittle him. "It's just that I really can't forget you. It's just that I really miss you." This sudden confession finally allowed the two to rekindle their relationship, which had been broken for 5 years. Forget the past. Start over again. Together, they will protect their daughter Lucy. The two kissed passionately again. Meanwhile, Youngkyu and the others were excited at home, not because Sora and Taejun had rekindled their romance, but because Jae-woon was preparing to propose to Sora. Taejun and Sora had returned to the feeling of being in love. Before going to bed, they would miss each other 1,000 times in their minds. The renewed relationship also made them cherish each other more. It was at this time that Sehun, the billionaire chairman, finally mustered the courage to propose to Sora. Sora, who had already started over with Taejun, simply rejected him. Sora told him that he had already started over with Taejun. Jae-woo did not expect such a result, but Sehun also said that Sora was the woman he had fallen in love with at first sight, so he didn't want to give up so easily. He would always wait for Sora as a good friend. Youngkyu and everyone else are looking forward to Sora's return, and there will be a big diamond ring on her hand that weighs a few kilograms. Sora did not let her family continue to hope, and directly told them that she had already sorted out her relationship with Sehun. "This is the golden husband that Youngkyu has always dreamed of. You must not give up like this." Immediately, he ran to Sehun's side and asked what the reason was. Sehun did not tell Youngkyu the real reason, saying that Sora's rejection was only his own fault, and said that he would keep waiting until Sora was willing to accept him. Fortunately, there is still a chance. Youngkyu was relieved. After returning home, his father angrily scolded Sora, asking if she had gone crazy and why she had rejected Sehun's proposal. Sora said that she was no longer a child and that she would make her own decisions about her life. Youngkyu was not giving up and once again found Sora, asking her to give a reason for not accepting Sehun. "I must know, why would you give up on such a good and wealthy man?" Sora's attitude of ignoring the Chaebol family is really annoying. The family understands that she wants to be with the poor Taejun, but her father still sees an insurmountable obstacle. What Sora never expected was that Taejun's family would also be a difficult and pleasant obstacle. The first person to know about Sora and Taejun's rekindled romance was her sister Sura. Sura was very worried that if her father found out about it, he would definitely be unable to accept it again and fly into a rage. But at this time, Sara had already thought about it 1,000 times, and told her sister, "I know what Dad will do when he finds out, but I'm not afraid now. If I were afraid, I wouldn't have started over with Taejun, because I was so young. I chose the wrong decision back then, and now I will never do anything like I did before and abandon my husband and daughter." But Sora is still very worried that Sora's decision will hurt Taejun again like before, so she warns Sora, "If you choose to run away again this time, we will cut off all ties. Jae-ho knows what kind of suffering Taejun and Lucy went through after Sora abandoned them. He immediately opposes Taejun's rekindling of his relationship with Sora. Taejun says that this time he and Sora will live together properly. Jae-ho firmly disagrees with him being with Sora. After all, he has already been abandoned once. What if he gets abandoned again? No matter how Sora and Taejun assure him that Sora has changed and will not do that. But Jae-ho still doesn't want Taejun to take risks. He refuses to agree to anything. The two start over, and Jae-ho even goes so far as to ask Sora out on a date alone. Jae-ho makes it very clear to Sora that she is not allowed to start over with Taejun. Not only does he not accept it, but all of his family members, including his mother, will not agree to it either. Because Sora's heartless abandonment of Taejun and her newborn daughter that year was something their family could not forgive. Taejun had to hold his newborn baby while working, and was eventually fired. He had nowhere to live, so he took shelter from the rain with his baby under someone else's roof. He had no money for formula, so he fed his baby only rainwater. Eventually, he had to steal formula. He ran and ran through the cold night, searching for his baby. He collapsed on the street from malnutrition. Jae-ho still feels the pain of seeing Taejun's pitiful state when he found him a few months later, and it still hurts like 1,000 arrows piercing his heart. How could Taejun's family forgive Sora after what he had done to Taejun? What worried Jae-ho even more was that if Sora's father found out about this, Taejun would suffer even more. So Jae-ho would never agree to Sora starting over with Taejun. Sora finally understood the enormous harm he had caused Taejun and his daughter when he had left them so ruthlessly. At this time, Mrs. Lee woke up and began to scold her mother for why she could not even decide her own death. In her desperate situation, her mother had to tell a secret that had been hidden for more than 20 years. Her mother told Mrs. Lee that the son you gave birth to that year did not die. If you die now, you will not be able to see your son. Mrs. Lee was shocked, but even more puzzled. Didn't her mother say that her son was dead? In order for her daughter to live a strong life, her mother could only tell her everything that happened that year. It turned out that Mrs. Lee fell in love with a poor boy and got pregnant before marriage. However, the poor boyfriend of the miserable Mrs. Lee died in an accident. The mother could not let her daughter become a single mother and affect her future life, so she gave the child to someone else to raise on a snowy night after Mrs. Lee gave birth to the child. Then she lied to Mrs. Lee that the child had died so that Mrs. Lee could marry Changmin, the wealthy husband, with peace of mind. After learning the truth, Mrs. Lee felt that her mother's actions were too ruthless. My mother said, I did it for your own good, but things don't always turn out as expected. Mrs. Lee's marriage was not as happy as her mother had hoped. Instead, she was living a life of suffering and pain, wishing she were dead. Her mother never expected things to turn out like this, but after her mother revealed the truth that her child was still alive, she had achieved her goal. Mrs. Lee finally saw hope for living again. She told her mother that no matter what, she must find her son while she was still alive. Otherwise, even if she dies, she will never forgive her mother. Only by trying to live one more day can there be more hope of seeing her child while she is still alive. The mother also promised Mrs. Lee that she would soon let him see his son. Myeong, the mother, is being treated in the same hospital as Mrs. Lee because she is not feeling well. This is Taejun's birthday. Lucy at home is preparing to go to the hospital with her aunt to visit her grandmother and celebrate her father's birthday. Lucy accidentally found a bracelet in her grandmother's room and put it on her wrist. After arriving at the hospital, the family took the opportunity of Taejun's birthday to get rid of the bad luck that had been on Myeong. It was indeed a special experience to have a birthday party in a hospital for the first time. Lucy started to sing the birthday song to wish her father a happy birthday. Then the whole family started to sing along. The beautiful singing voice drifted outside and was just heard by Mrs. Lee, who was carrying a cake to give to her son for his birthday. She was very happy that her son was still alive, and that she could celebrate his birthday every year, no matter where he was. Indeed, hope is what makes life worth living. Lucy gave the bracelet to Taejun as a gift. Myeong was shocked when she saw it and immediately asked for it back. Upon closer inspection, she suddenly remembered something very important. She asked everyone except Taejun to leave the room for the time being. It turned out that Myeong had been wearing the bracelet on Taejun's wrist since the day she adopted him. Since Taejun already knew his identity, Myeong hoped that Taejun could find his biological parents with the bracelet. But no one expected that the mother and son had not yet been reunited. But instead, their hatred for each other was growing. Due to Mrs. Lee, Changmin often went to this hospital and encountered Myeong. Changmin felt bad about the harm Mrs. Lee had caused Myeong's poor family. Changmin found Myeong and wanted to compensate a shop to reduce her pressure and let her focus on her treatment. Myeong didn't want to accept it. but then her body suddenly felt a sharp pain. Changmin saw this and hurriedly helped her. This scene happened to be seen by Mrs. Lee in the distance. This made Mrs. Lee and her mother suddenly furious. They then ran to Mayang's ward. Mrs. Lee's mother scolded Mayang and started to hit her without saying a word. Fortunately, Taejun came and rushed up to push Mrs. Lee's mother aside. However, Mrs. Lee's mother knocked her daughter onto the bed. This angered Mrs. Lee's mother, who rushed up and started to hit and scold Taejun. She scolded him for not respecting the elderly and for being as despicable as his mother. Mayang watched her son being beaten and scolded like this and immediately became angry. She dragged her aching body to stop it. She could scold herself and hit herself for anything, but Mayang would not allow anyone to hurt her son. Mrs. Lee's mother would not relent. Watching Mayang's painful appearance as she had a seizure made her even angrier. Mayang could recover just by being treated for her illness, but her daughter would soon die in pain. Thinking about this, she wanted to go up and hit Mayang again. At this time, Taejun hated them to death and directly forced the two of them to go out. I wonder what Mrs. Lee and her mother and Taejun will feel after they know about each other's relationship. Mrs. Lee's side of the story, the person looking for the child suggested that she first report the genetic sample to the police. Maybe the child is also looking for his mother in this way. In that case, they can meet soon. Taejun also came to the police station to find his biological parents. So the two people who didn't know that they were mother and son and were both looking for each other met unexpectedly. At that moment, Taejun received a call from his adoptive mother looking for him. His adoptive mother has now even surpassed the position of his biological mother in Taejun's heart. After all, the kindness of raising someone is greater than the kindness of giving birth. But when Taejun left, he was still very confused as to why Mrs. Lee was here. For Taejun now, finding his biological mother is not his current priority. What worries and troubles him the most is that getting back together with Sora is not accepted by everyone. Hayami sees Sora as if she were her sworn enemy. Without saying a word, she uses her woman's essential skills to teach her a lesson. Mayang is also very surprised to find Sora at home. Sora explains that Taejun asked her to pick up Lucy from school, so she is here. Hayami knows how much Taejun hates Sora after she abandoned him, and she wants to teach Sora a lesson again. But then Jaeho says that Taejun has already made up with Sora, and Sora's affirmation makes Mayang feel incredibly touched. Mayang still vividly remembers the hurt Sora caused Taejun, and now Sora is saying that she loves Taejun and wants to start over. Mayang is really afraid that Sora will repeat the same story as 5 years ago and immediately wants to kick Sora out of the house. She scolds Sora for having no right to say that she loves Taejun. Taejun and Sora start over again. Mayang directly expresses her disapproval. Hayami does not give up and runs in, telling her mother not to say anything to Sora and to just kick her out. Jaeho has to speak for Sora out of consideration for her face, and directly shifts the blame, scolding Hayami. If she hadn't taken Lucy to the filming location and met Sora, then there wouldn't be a situation like this today. Mayang directly kicks them out. Mayang then questioned Taejun. Have you forgotten the pain you once endured and the hardships of raising Lucy alone? You have finally emerged from that pain. Why do you want to continue now? Taejun said that he has now forgiven Sora for what she did. He implored his adoptive mother to accept Sora for the sake of Lucy. Mayang could not accept this. Not to mention anything else, Sora's family would never accept such a thing. She was really afraid of what Sora's father would do to hurt Taejun again. However, Taejun is no longer afraid of what will happen to Lucy in the future. He says, even if there is great suffering, Sora and I, as parents, will try our best to overcome it. He hopes that his mother will agree to let him start over with Sora. Mayang can only sigh helplessly, not knowing what to say. At that moment, Lucy ran in to find Sora. Seeing Lucy's love and dependence on Sora, everyone present felt very heavy-hearted and helpless. They hated Sora for abandoning her husband and daughter so ruthlessly back then, but now they can't bear to see poor Lucy lose her mother. On the way back, Sora's tears never stopped. She understands very well how sorry she was for Taejun's family. Taejun reached out and took Sora's hand to comfort her. One day everyone will accept us. We must have confidence. As long as we don't give up, things will get better. Once again, they returned to the feelings of their former love, and Taejun felt a long-lost happiness. On the other side, Mrs. Lee always sees her grown son calling out to her in her dreams and running into her arms. After waking up, she always feels that this back is so familiar. She feels that she will recognize it as soon as she sees it. Mrs. Lee sighs that this may be the connection between biological mother and son. The funny thing is that Taejun has been hanging around her all the time, but she just didn't recognize him and instead hurt him. The next day, Mrs. Lee couldn't wait to come to the police station to ask if there was anyone with a genetic match for her, but the result instantly shattered Mrs. Lee's expectations and made her worry that her son was really dead. The mother was afraid that Mrs. Lee would give up on life again, so she did her best to ensure that her child was definitely not dead. Since the whereabouts of the person who took the child away that year were unknown, they were also looking for that person. The mother could only make an excuse that Mrs. Lee must get better in order to see her son. The mother-in-law went to great lengths to open her own safe, and inside it was surprisingly kept a urinal. Jinky couldn't believe there weren't any gold bars or money in there, so she immediately started rummaging around in her mother-in-law's room. This scared the mother-in-law so much that she immediately told her son to get Jinky out of the house. In the middle of the night, Yonkyu ran to his mother's room and asked where the gold bars that were in the safe had gone. The mother then told Yonkyu, who was very worried, with a smug smile on her face, that in order to prevent their daughter-in-law from finding out about their secret stash of money, his mother hurriedly placed all the gold bars and cash under the pillow before his wife came to the room. The mother and son spent the whole day on guard against Jinky, as if they were protecting against thieves. Subsequently, the two happily placed the gold bars and cash back in the safe. Yonkyu accidentally learned that his goddess, Mrs. Lee, was sick and hospitalized. He couldn't help but lament why such a beautiful woman was not his own. On this day, Yonkyu gathered the whole family together for a rare occasion to announce something incredibly important. He's decided to enter politics and become a real power player, and now he needs the support of everyone in the family. Jinky, on the other hand, is strongly opposed to her husband's decision to enter politics. She's happy with her life and doesn't want her husband to take any risks. However, her mother is very supportive of Yonkyu's decision. With his mother's support, Yonkyu became more confident. He began to advise Sura and Sora not to make any trouble lately that would affect his election. Sura and Sora fall into silence after their father's advice. Sura is okay with it, but Sora is not. She is now dating Taejun without her father's knowledge. Sura tells Sora that for the sake of her father's dream, it's best not to see Taejun too often. He'll tell the truth when he becomes a director. Sora has no choice but to do so now, or else she'll destroy her father's dream. And then there's no telling what kind of horrible things will happen. Over the next few days, Yonkyu and his mother's secret fund is getting smaller and smaller. For this election, Yonkyu has really invested a lot of money and even resigned from his current position. This move scared Ginky. He's not even successful yet, and he wants to kill himself. If something goes wrong, it's all over. Yonkyu and his mother-in-law didn't think it would work after all the gifts. But then news came that made Yonkyu lose his head. Yonkyu's rival told him that Sora had a child before he got married, and now they are still dating. It's unbelievable for Yonkyu to have such a problem at this time. When he came back, he was furious with his wife. Jinky's hiding the fact that Lucy is Sora's daughter was already unacceptable to him, and now she's covering up Sora's rekindling of her relationship with Taejun. Jinky won't admit that Sora and Taejun are together again. Sora thinks that she can't irritate her father now so as not to hurt Taejun. She could only lie that she really didn't have a relationship with Taejun. This makes Yonkyu's heart relax, thinking that Sora's affair is a rival's false accusation. In order to qualify as a candidate, Yonkyu had to do charity work. But she met Mrs. Lee, who also came to do charity work. Seeing the goddess in front of him again makes Yonkyu nervous and coy like a schoolboy. In comparison, he disliked his current wife. Yonkyu's eyes never left Mrs. Lee. Mrs. Lee suddenly had a seizure and fainted. The heavens had heard Yonkyu's voice and created an opportunity for him to get in touch with Mrs. Lee. Yonkyu was so worried that he picked up Mrs. Lee and ran out. His wife came out and asked him what his relationship with Mrs. Lee was. Yonkyu didn't think he had done anything wrong but told his mother to go to the hospital to see what was wrong with Mrs. Lee. When his mother returned home, she told him the truth that Mrs. Lee was dying of terminal cancer. This made Yonkyu's heart ache. Why did this happen to the goddess of his heart? At that time, his mother also told Yonkyu that the person who caused Mrs. Lee's illness to worsen and there was no cure was Myeon. Hearing this, Yonkyu hated Taejun's family even more. Through Yonkyu's hard work, he finally became the director's next candidate. He was so excited that he fantasized about becoming the president of the country. At this critical moment, Yonkyu can't afford to lose his job because of a family scandal. But the more he worries, the more things happen. On the way back, he overheard the scene of Sora leading Lucy across the street. Although Sora's face was covered, Yonkyu recognized them at once. He immediately had a feeling that something bad was happening and hurriedly pulled over to chase after Sora's direction. Instead, Yonkyu saw Taejun and Sora in close proximity. He was so angry that he wanted his daughter to marry a plutocrat. He caught up with Taejun on the street and started a fight, then took Sora and left. When he got home, Youngkyu was furious at Sora and accused her of being crazy. Why did she lie to herself and secretly rekindle her love with Taejun? But this time, Sora rebutted her father's accusation. Even in the face of her father's beating behavior, she is not afraid at all. This time, Sora won't do anything she regrets like before. She wants to be with Taejun and her daughter. She told her father that when her contract with the company expires, she will not be a star anymore and will marry Taejun. Taejun is also worried when he returns home. Youngkyu's opposition to his relationship with Sora is a big headache for him. On the other hand, Mrs. Lee finally found the man who took her child from her mother. But when the man took Mrs. Lee to the place where the family who adopted the child lived, the place was already empty. This brought Mrs. Lee's search for her son to a standstill. The mother immediately encouraged Mrs. Lee not to give up hope and to take care of her health and that she would find the boy. Taejun is now being forced to break up with Sora by Youngkyu, who despises him. Once Taejun was young and didn't know how to overcome the difficulties before losing Sora. Now that he's grown up, Taejun won't make the same mistake again, even for the sake of his daughter Lucy. He will never break up with Sora now. Youngkyu thinks that Taejun sees Sora as a star now and that's why he's so persistent. Sora denounced her father's dirty and self-righteous thoughts. She said that she was the one who pestered Taejun to get back together and now she can't live without Taejun and Lucy. Youngkyu, not only for the sake of Sora but also for the sake of his own development in the political arena, he will never let Sora be with the poor boy Taejun. The son-in-law he's been waiting for is Sehun, the chairman of the Zaibatsu. With Sehun's help and support, his career in politics will be enhanced. When they met the next day, Sehun was quick to say that he would support Youngkyu's political career. Seeing that Sehun is still in love with his daughter makes Youngkyu even more determined to break up his daughter and Taejun. Youngkyu knows that Taejun's biggest weakness is his daughter. Lucy has always had a crush on Youngkyu, so Youngkyu successfully took her away from the kindergarten. He took Lucy to a deserted place and called Taejun. Taejun followed the address and found Youngkyu. Youngkyu took out the pledge that he used Lucy to force Taejun to sign. It clearly states that if Taejun violates the agreement and meets with Sora, he will never see Lucy again. Now Taejun has violated Youngkyu's decision to send Lucy abroad. If Taejun continues to follow the guarantee and doesn't meet Sora, then Youngkyu will give him back his daughter. This time, Youngkyu used Lucy again to force Taejun to break up with Sora. For the sake of Lucy, Taejun had to pick up the phone and tell Sora to break up. Sora on the other side of the phone couldn't believe it. After all this, Youngkyu gave Taejun back his daughter, but Sora couldn't accept it. She ran to Taejun's house to ask what happened, but Taejun hadn't come back yet and her sister and brother-in-law were at home. So Jaeho told the story of how a group of men in black stole Lucy from Taejun. The price for Taejun to get Lucy back was to sign a promise with your father. Hearing this, Sora once again couldn't believe that her father had done such a cruel thing back then. Also know why Lucy was suddenly taken away by her father and why Taejun suddenly wanted to break up with himself. It turns out that everything was caused by the father's dirty tricks. Father's great image directly in the heart of Sora collapse. After returning home, Sora was unable to control her emotions, reprimanded her father for what he did was not for her daughter but for his own ambitions. Sora's words also angered Youngkyu, who didn't recognize such a thing. Youngkyu is adamant that he's doing this for the sake of the family. Both father and daughter are at loggerheads with each other. In the face of her father's refusal to admit his mistake, he still has a strong look that finally makes Sora completely broken. Sora smashed everything in front of her eyes on the ground and then ran away from home. When her mother received Sora's phone call, it was Sora's last goodbye. As a father, Youngkyu never felt it was his fault that his daughter was in such a state. He immediately went to Taejun's house and blamed Taejun for everything. Youngkyu angrily told Taejun that if he didn't hand over Sora, he would put the whole family in jail. He rushed to the house several times to abuse and scold others without fear, and finally Sora couldn't take it anymore. Sora said that Sora and Taejun are now separated. Why do you still want to cause trouble in other people's homes? Youngkyu never imagined that he would be scolded by his eldest daughter like this one day, and it was for an outsider. The double blow of two daughters who used to love each other so much made Youngkyu feel pain in his heart. At this time, Sora thought of her father's selfishness and what he did to Taejun and Lucy, but in the end, she still sobered up and left this beautiful world. She's not willing to let go of her daughter and lover. Sora decided to take Taejun and Lucy away from their father's clutches to live abroad, but Taejun chose to give up. He didn't want Sora and Lucy to live a life of displacement. For the sake of their mother and daughter, Taejun could only choose to break up and protect them in this way. How could Sora not know Taejun's good intentions at this time? In order to protect her daughter, Sora had no choice. At this time, Youngkyu was still waiting for Sora's news at Taejun's house. His arrogant attitude angered Jaeho. He said, "What's the big deal about this old man? Why is he looking down on his own family? What did Taejun do wrong to make you ignore him so much? Youngkyu said that Taejun's meeting with Sara was a mistake. He doesn't know who his real parents are. He could be a thief or a child abandoned by a crook's family. Jaeho shouted in anger. Jinki knew that her husband had said the wrong thing, and if she didn't leave, she would be beaten up. But the one who is most saddened is Sura, who is crying silently. Her father's disrespectful behavior towards her in-laws makes her wonder what kind of face she'll have to live with in this family. Taejun brought Sora to the door of the house. Sora said her final goodbyes to Lucy's sister. This time I really have to go far away. I won't have time to come back to see you again. You do not miss my sister and do not go to my sister's home or to the TV station to find my sister. When you grow up we will meet again. Lucy directly pulled Sara and questioned why you want to leave me. This ending is extremely painful for Taejun and Sara and Lucy. Taejun deliberately worked his ass off every day to forget the pain and didn't even want to stop until he got a nosebleed. Soon, who has been secretly in love with Taejun, also felt his sadness. Taejun's breakup with Sora made Youngkyu happy. Si-hoon, who has always been in love with Sora, will have a chance to become his son-in-law. Youngkyu also realized that at this critical moment, he couldn't care less about his pride and had to make Sora Si-hoon's wife. He couldn't let his precious daughter be with a poor boy who sells shoes on the roadside with unknown origins. But what Youngkyu didn't realize was that Taejun was his goddess Mrs. Lee's biological son. Mrs. Lee's search for her son has finally been rewarded with another piece of good news. The people who were searching outside have found the couple who adopted the child. Hyami is Donghyun's subordinate in the company. They were attracted to each other at work and soon fell in love. They even spent a wonderful night together. Donghyun was about to visit Hyami's home to confirm their relationship and get married. But Hyami was in a panic and didn't want Donghyun to go to her house. Donghyun first thought that it was a problem between his sister and Hyami's mother. But when he saw Jaeho coming back with Sura, he realized why Hyami was trying so hard to stop him. It turns out that the woman who ran away at the wedding has become Hyami's brother's wife. The woman who almost became his wife may now become his sister-in-law. Donghyun's brain went down for a moment and he left like a lost soul. He really didn't think that he'd run into such a bloody thing. But Donghyun didn't give up on his love because of this incident. He decided to emigrate with Hyami to a foreign country so that he could avoid such awkwardness. When Jaeho and Sura found out that Hyami and Donghyun were dating, they couldn't accept it and wouldn't allow it. How can you let your enemy who almost married your wife become your brother-in-law? How can you let a rival who almost married your wife live under the same roof as your wife? Sura is the woman Donghyun ran away from and almost became his wife. It was already awkward to meet her. Sura can't accept that she's going to become a family. But Hyami doesn't care and wants to be with Donghyun. Sura had to advise Hyami to break off her relationship with Donghyun. Don't make it inconvenient and awkward for yourself and your mother-in-law to face Donghyun. Mother-in-law is Donghyun's sister's rival, and now because you and Donghyun are together, they are going to become a family. Do you think it's a good thing for her to do? Hyami went to retort that you married my brother without considering everyone's feelings. Aren't you ashamed to say such things now? In the face of Sura stopping her love, Hyami has no respect for her sister-in-law who hasn't even started yet and scolds her for not being in a position to control her. Meanwhile, Jaeho asked Donghyun to break up with Hyami. Donghyun said that he would never break up with Hyami, so they fought in broad daylight. Unexpectedly, Hyami, who had just separated from Sura, saw this scene. Hyami pushed away her brother who was riding on top of Donghyun. Seeing her beloved being beaten and bleeding, Hyami didn't care if it was her own brother who she had lived with for decades. She was so angry that she went up to avenge Donghyun's death. Sura rushed over to protect her husband. It's at times like this that the importance of love and family comes into play. Sura asks Hyami how she could do such an unreasonable thing. Hyami went home and told her brother that she didn't want to talk to a person with no qualities. Jaeho was so angry that he was about to teach his sister a lesson. But then Sura stopped him and told him that it's more effective to talk about things like this between women. Don't look at Sura. She usually looks like a lady with a delicate face, but at this time she showed her other side. Sura didn't show any respect to Hyami, who didn't listen to her and didn't respect her elders. Sura pushed Hyami onto the bed and immediately mounted her. She warned Hyami that if you dare to be cocky again, I'll take off your clothes and throw you on the street. When she saw her brother coming, Hyami immediately put on an aggrieved look. It was too late for her to remember the benefits of her brother. Jihori ignored Hyami and carefully helped Sura out. Hyami and Donghyun's desire to be together was not accepted by everyone, but Donghyun is confident that Hyami will solve their problems one by one and finally be accepted to be together. The first person he had to deal with was the violent Jaeho. As the saying goes, as long as there's alcohol between men, there's no such thing as a grudge. The result was predictable. Jaeho agreed to go out with him right away. He even said in front of Sura that the love between Hyami and Donghyun is the same as the love between them. Not hearing such words made Sura feel helpless, but she had no reason to argue. That day, the men brought Mrs. Lee to the columbarium and told her that her child had passed away. Seeing her son was the only thing that kept Mrs. Lee alive and strong. Once again, her expectation turned into endless despair, making her death even more painful. The mother also regretted not telling Mrs. Lee about her child if she had known he was dead. Then Mrs. Lee wouldn't have had to suffer the pain of losing her son before she died. But the mother still wanted her to live as long as she could. After all, Mrs. Lee's mom is also a mother who doesn't want to lose her child. In order to minimize the pain, Taejun transferred all the pain to his work and worked as hard as he could. And Youngkyu threatened Sara to marry Sehun or make Taejun disappear forever so that he could succeed in politics. Sara says she'll listen to her father, even if she marries a beggar. She doesn't care, but she still can't let go of Taejun and her daughter. She first told Taejun about her marriage to Sehun. Sara thought that Taejun would come to stop her, but Taejun didn't but gave her his blessing. Taejun's look of helplessness masked the pain, and Sora realized that what she had just said was impossible to come true, because they both knew that if they did that, Youngkyu would never let each of them go, including poor Lucy. They love each other, but now they are full of pain and say blessing to each other to live a good life with another person. Back in the studio, Taejun couldn't control the pain in his heart anymore and burst into tears. Knowing Youngkyu's tactics, he could only give up his feelings for Sora to protect his daughter. Although Taejun was sorry that Lucy couldn't have a mother, but in order to protect Lucy, Taejun can only do this now. I hope that when Lucy grows up, she will understand his helplessness as a father. When the outside world found out that Sora was going to marry Sehun, Youngkyu got a lot of support from the executives. On the other hand, Mrs. Lee, who thought her son was really dead this time, decided to wait for his death quietly at home. Changmin wanted Mrs. Lee to receive treatment and live on, but Mrs. Lee didn't know what was the point of living, but she was suffering from the disease every day. But then the mother got the news that the child was not dead. The mother immediately went back to tell Mrs. Lee, who had already given up on life. When Mrs. Lee found out what had happened, she wept with joy and had a new sense of purpose in life. By this time, Mrs. Lee was in a good mood and had dealt with one more thing. She no longer cared about the past between Mayang and her husband. She apologized to Mayang's family for hurting her. After all, Mrs. Lee missed the happy times when she was Mayang's best friend. With her heart broken, Mayang was saddened and sympathetic when she learned of Mrs. Lee's condition, so she would come to Mrs. Lee's house and cook something delicious for her. Mrs. Lee loved Mayang's cooking. Mayang encouraged Mrs. Lee to stay alive so that she could find her child. Mrs. Lee asked Mayang not to let Changmin know about the child. She didn't want Changmin to feel disappointed and betrayed again. After all these years, she didn't have a child with him but had a child with someone else. Taejun found out that his adoptive mother was acting like a nanny in Mrs. Lee's house. Taejun couldn't bear to think of the harm Mrs. Lee had done to him, his foster mom and his family. He rushed to Mrs. Lee's house to take her back. Mrs. Lee's mom, who already knew her mistake, begged Taejun to keep her foster mom to take care of her daughter, but Taejun pulled her away without showing any mercy. Mayang then told Taejun about Mrs. Lee's current condition. She hoped that Taejun would understand her feelings. In the face of death, there's no such thing as a grudge. Mayang just wanted to be her best friend and accompany Mrs. Lee on her last journey. Mrs. Lee's mom was envious of Taejun's protection of her mother. If her grandson was there, her daughter would be protected by her son. That's why Mrs. Lee's mom had to let her dying daughter enjoy her son's love as soon as possible. But against her wishes, the doctor informed her that Mrs. Lee's condition had worsened and that she had only 3 months to live. That day, her mother rushed to Mrs. Lee's room to tell her that the baby had been found and would be coming home soon. Mrs. Lee's heart almost exploded with excitement at this news. The sight of a mother meeting after more than 20 years was so touching. Mayang, as her best friend, also cried for Mrs. Lee when she saw this scene. Mrs. Lee was very emotional, but she didn't lose her head. How could she know that Junhee was her son without a paternity test? At this point, Mrs. Lee asked Junhee to tell her his birth name written on the leash. Junhee said the name right away. Mrs. Lee was immediately sure that Junhee was her real son, but she didn't know that her real son was just an actor that her mother had found for her. The mother saw that Mrs. Lee had only 3 months to live, but there was no news of her search for the child. She didn't want to see her daughter die in peace, so she found an actor to deceive Mrs. Lee. This was the mother's lie to her daughter. But what she didn't expect was that the actor she found this time would lead the wolves into the house. She told Junhee to do whatever she was told and she would be paid well. But when Junhee saw that Mrs. Lee's mother's first payment wasn't very generous, she was upset. Junhee, who was living in poverty, had a plan to get a huge inheritance from Mrs. Lee. Mrs. Lee, who was unaware of this, was still in the process of recognizing her son. She was going to tell Changmin about her son. The mother won't approve of Mrs. Lee doing this. She doesn't want to be thrown out of the family. After her mother's argument, Mrs. Lee didn't have the courage to tell Changmin the truth. But at this time Junhee started her own plan. Mrs. Lee, who loves her son, decided to make amends to him. Now Fuzi realized the gravity of the situation. Mrs. Lee would definitely give Junhee all her inheritance after her death to make up for her son's debt. Fuzi immediately hid in her room and asked Junhee what she wanted. Junhee didn't panic at all. He just told the truth and quit. But he also knew that he would never allow the truth about his fake son to come out. As expected, Fuzi immediately apologized for his harsh words and asked Junhee to stay. And Junhee pretended to show his true feelings and said that he just really liked Mrs. Lee's mom. That's why he couldn't help but tell the truth about his real-life situation and didn't have any other intentions. But now Fuzi didn't have to believe it or not. She just hoped that Junhee wouldn't hurt her daughter's kind heart. Junhee immediately looked like a gentleman and reassured Fuzi not to worry. Secrets can never be hidden. Mrs. Lee and Junhee see each other every day at home. It's inevitable that Changmin won't know the truth. She still wants to tell Changmin the truth. Her mother was strongly against it, thinking that if she kept it from Changmin for 3 months, when Mrs. Lee passed away, she'd have nothing to do with Junhee. Changmin mustn't know the truth now and cause unnecessary trouble. Unexpectedly, Changmin came to the room and overheard the conversation between mother and daughter. He finally realized that Mrs. Lee had a son. Changmin was furious and began to wonder if Mrs. Lee hadn't had a child with him because she already had one. He had hoped to make his daughter enjoy her family before she died by telling her a good faith lie and then die in peace. But now the false son not only looks like he has other plans. Mrs. Lee's son-in-law knew that she had a son, which hurt her son-in-law's heart. Fuzi really regretted that she shouldn't have done such a thing. At that moment, Si-hoon's half-sister came back from abroad. She came to Youngkyo's house to see her fiancé. Youngkyo was so enthusiastic that he asked his wife to prepare a sumptuous lunch for her. But he didn't realize that his sister, who had been abroad for a long time, was a chatterbox. Even a simple piece of seaweed became the topic of her conversation. Jinky and her mother-in-law felt that this woman was a bit scary, but some of her words sounded so childish and ridiculous. Jinky couldn't take it anymore and spit out her food. Si-hoon pointed to her teeth and reminded her that there was something there. After the meal, my sister was so excited about Si-hoon's second wedding that she wanted to sing a song to celebrate. Grandma and Jinky felt a chill down their spine. With that voice of hers, the song will be no better. Youngkyo needs a son-in-law like Si-hoon, no matter what. Jinky and Grandma had to listen to her soul-stirring voice. As expected, Youngkyo's pressure on his daughter to marry Si-hoon finally paid off. It's 100% certain that he'll enter politics and become a director. But just when Youngkyo's election campaign was over and he was about to send Si-hoon off, Lucy was passing by and saw the Sora she's been longing for. The kid knew what to do and rushed towards Sora without any hesitation. Lucy's appearance scared Youngkyo a lot. He can't let the matter between Sora and Taejun come out at this time. He quickly explained to Si-hoon's sister that Lucy was Sora's co-star in the movie, and Sora didn't dare to have too much contact with Lucy for fear of ruining her father's entry into politics. When facing Lucy, she ignored her and looked very resistant. Sora's cold behavior hurt Lucy's young heart. After returning to Taejun's arms, she said she would never play with Sora again and would never see her again. Sora's heartless behavior just now made Hayami extremely angry. She wanted to take revenge by exposing Sora's abandonment of her husband and son to the media. But considering her brother's life, Hayami could only endure it. She can also see that Suun has always loved Taejun. She told Suun to take this opportunity to get Taejun's heart and let Lucy have her mom. But Suun is in a dilemma and doesn't know how to go about it. Hayami told her to get Taejun drunk and make another baby. Suun really listened to Hayami and drank some wine with Taejun. She finally confessed her love to Taejun. But Taejun's next words not only hurt Suun's heart but also made her angry. Taejun's next words not only hurt Suun's heart but also made him angry. The reason was that Suun was not a woman in his eyes but a brother. Taejun's apology made Suun feel even worse. She knew that what she had been doing all these days was just a wishful thinking. After venting out her feelings, Suun hurriedly separated from Taejun. As a woman, she has her own dignity. In order to leave behind the good times with Taejun, Suun decided to leave Taejun's side forever. Otherwise, if she continues to stay with Taejun who doesn't treat her as a woman, she will hate and resent Taejun even more. Sora remembered that she had been indifferent to Lucy and knew that she had hurt her little heart, so came to the kindergarten and looked at Lucy from afar and kept saying sorry in her heart. This scene was seen by Taejun, who came to pick up Lucy. Taejun urged Sora to forget Lucy again. If you continue to endlessly entangled will only make me and my daughter more difficult. Forget about us and go live a good life. I've already said goodbye to you. Unexpectedly, the scene of their meeting was seen by Suun, who came to say goodbye to Lucy from afar. She thought Sora was a hypocritical woman who said she loved Lucy, but she abandoned Lucy from the moment he was born and now she's hurting him again. A gentle woman's anger is terrifying. She's determined to teach Sora a lesson for being a hypocritical and vicious woman. What Hayami didn't dare to do, Suun did now. Suun posted all of Sora's black history on the internet and exposed it. Suun thought he was avenging Taejun's death. Instead, he pushed Taejun into a deeper hell of pain. The netizens are accusing Sora of being a heartless, materialistic woman who loves the rich and the poor. When this news came out, Youngkyu's popularity rating instantly took a huge hit. When Sehun's sister found out about this, she scolded Youngkyu's whole family for being bad people. Sora and Sehun's marriage was put on hold. Sehun had to send Sora abroad for her sake. Taejun is worried about Sora's pain. He also blamed himself at this time. He could not do anything but to see Sora because of the abandonment of the daughter of the belly hard. What others have said is true. Sora did not shirk her responsibility, but this makes Taejun even more heartbroken. Sora has to bear the world's blame and scolding. At this time, Youngkyu anxious if this matter is not dealt with properly, then all his efforts may be lost. He couldn't allow himself to fail at this time, so he came up with a way to turn the situation around by bribing the landlord of the place where Taejun and Sora used to live. He made them lie to the media that Taejun took his newborn daughter and abandoned Sora. As expected, this news instantly turned all the odds against Youngkyu and even gained him more support. Through the efforts of netizens, they quickly recognized the bad man who abandoned Sora as Taejun. Thus Taejun went from a poor abandoned victim to a heartless scum overnight. Angry people went to Taejun's new shoe store and yelled at him. Taejun then saw on the internet that he was called a scum who stole his daughter and abandoned his wife. Taejun's first thought was his daughter. This kind of thing will definitely affect the innocent Lucy. As expected, Lucy was surrounded by a large group of reporters who were asking questions about her just after school. Taejun, who came with her, saw this scene and realized that it was bad enough and rushed to take her daughter away from the crowd. Lucy finally realized that Sora was her real mother, who she thought was dead. From the reporter's questioning, she asked Taejun why he lied to her. Taejun didn't know how to answer Lucy's question. He just told her that when she grows up, she will know why her father did it. However, at this time, Lucy was not happy to have a mother but more sad, because when she remembered how Sora ignored her before, Lucy's heart was cut like a knife. Taejun had no choice but to pick up Lucy in his arms to comfort her. At this time, Sora is already abroad when she saw the piece of news that falsely accused Taejun is a scumbag anxious bad. She could imagine how painful it would be for Taejun to be scolded by the world for being wrongly accused. Thinking about how hard it would be for Lucy to know that she is her mother, Sora wanted to go back to China immediately to clarify the truth. But Taejun stopped her. Taejun is willing to bear all the pain for Sora. Facing the media's questioning, Taejun said that what happened was an adult's fault and hoped that he wouldn't hurt his daughter. Jae-ho, however, did not want to see Taejun bear all the sins and be abused by the world. He explained in front of the media that it was all Sora's fault for abandoning his daughter, but without evidence. Jae-ho's words are not convincing. Hayami's co-workers insulted Taejun in the office for stealing her daughter and abandoning Sora. How could she let her co-worker insult her brother like that? She was so angry that she fought with her co-worker in the office. If it wasn't for Donghyun's timely arrival, Hayami would have pulled the plug on her co-worker today. At this time, Suun didn't realize that her behavior of punishing Sora had caused Taejun so much pain. She could only run to apologize to Taejun and tell him that she was responsible for exposing Sora's abandonment of her husband and daughter. Taejun didn't blame Suun for what happened. He wanted to take the blame and protect Sora and Lucy. But Jae-ho and Hayami don't want to see Taejun do that. Tomorrow, Sora will come back to the country to settle the matter. They all agreed to go to the airport to welcome Sora, because Youngkyu was afraid that Sora will come back to clarify the truth, so he will definitely control Sora. Sora is now Taejun's only savior and mustn't be captured by Youngkyu. The next day, both sides are on standby as soon as Sora appears. They must get rid of her at the first time. Sora finally appeared in disguise. Youngkyu with a large group of people kidnapped his daughter from the airport and locked her in a room where she was not allowed to go. He has to make sure that Sora doesn't find out the truth before he wins the election. Mayang had to go to Youngkyu's house to ask for Sora in order to save Taejun, who had been wrongly accused. but Youngkyu can't give up Sora to sabotage his election. Mayang has no choice but to stand in front of Youngkyu's house and tell the neighbors that Youngkyu has framed his son. Youngkyu has no choice but to come out to stop her and threatens to send Mayang to jail if she doesn't leave. Mayang is not afraid to take Sora away to clarify the fact that Taejun didn't steal his daughter and abandon his wife. Sora's grandmother also threw salt at Mayang for her son. She denounced Mayang as a savage who dared to bully her son in front of her house. Taejun's new company is about to close down because of the false accusations. All the hard work he's put into his business over the years will go down the drain. Mayang couldn't let Taejun, who was already poor and fatherless, suffer like this again. Youngkyu's behavior makes her eldest daughter Sura, who is Mayang's daughter-in-law, suffer even more. She packs her bags and decides to leave her father's house, and the damage she has done to her in-laws leaves her with no face to live in this house anymore. Mayang doesn't transfer her hatred for Youngkyu to Sura. She tells Sura that the moment you entered my house, you are my daughter and you have done nothing wrong and there is no need to feel sorry. At this point, Mayang's warm embrace makes Sura truly feel what family is not something that can be exchanged for money. Sara came out and clarified that the family was hiding this from Taejun. When Taejun found out, he hoped his family wouldn't do that. He was willing to bear all the pain and didn't want Lucy to know. He didn't want Sora, who he loved all along, to be scolded by the world. I'm an ordinary person, and as time passes, things will soon calm down. Hayami told him to tell the truth to avoid being misunderstood by the world as a scum. Youngkyu locks Sora up and starts canvassing for votes in the next few days. He's going to win. Jinky can't stand what he's doing and wants to stand up for what's right, but she's just a housewife without any financial power. She has no power at all. Youngkyu told Jinky to stay put with just one word. If she lets Sora go and spoils her election, she'll be kicked out of the house and divorced. But at this time, there was someone who took advantage of Youngkyu's situation. It's the fighter who obeyed Youngkyu and stole Lucy from Taejun and left her at the orphanage. In order to prevent the assailant from telling the truth, Youngkyu had to offer 100 million won as hush money. At this time, Sora's Sehun, whom she had not been able to contact, came to the house again. Sehun's arrival freed Sora from her room. For Taejun's sake, Sara no longer cared about her selfish father. She clarifies in front of Sehun that she abandoned her husband and daughter. This truth makes Taejun angry. Sehun realized that Youngkyu had been lying to him all along. It's his motto that he should never have a relationship with a liar. Even though Sehun loves Sora, he can't disobey his grandfather's rule. Sehun got up without saying a word and left in a huff. This makes Youngkyu furious at Sora's behavior. He angrily warns Sora that if her wedding to Sehun fails like this, he won't let her go easily. Seeing her father, who used to love her so much, turn into such a devil makes Sora's heart ache like 1,000 arrows piercing through her heart. Taejun's life is like hell now, but Junhee, who replaced Taejun as the young master of a rich family, has started his ambitious plan. When Changmin found out that Mrs. Lee had a son, she couldn't accept it for a while, but after calming down, she accepted it with open arms. After all, Mrs. Lee is leaving this world soon and Changmin only hopes to accompany Mrs. Lee in her last moments. Junhee, with Mrs. Lee's and Changmin's approval, began to mentally plan to become the company's heir. He asked Mrs. Lee to buy him a new apartment and asked for an unlimited credit card from Mrs. Lee. Fuzi watched and was anxious but could do nothing about it. Mrs. Lee was about to hand over everything to her fake son. Fuzi, anxious and helpless, could only comfort herself. As long as she can give her daughter the motivation to live, it's worth sacrificing something. But the comfort of such a reason was not enough to convince her what she should do for a while. Taejun's news was finally seen by Mrs. Lee, her own mother, who immediately asked Mayang what was going on. Mayang didn't hide anything and told her all about Taejun's wrongdoings. Although Mrs. Lee didn't recognize Taejun, Mayang was her best friend. When her best friend's son was being bullied, she had to help. Changmin also happened to hear Mayang's saddened face when her son was wronged. Mrs. Lee knew Changmin wanted to help and was holding back because of his feelings. Mrs. Lee took the initiative to ask Changmin to do something to help poor Mayang and her son. Changmin immediately asked his men to investigate Taejun's case. Meanwhile, Youngkyu lost his status in the industry as soon as he lost his son-in-law Sehun. He wanted to see Sehun to ease the relationship a little, but Sehun didn't want to see him at all. This made Youngkyu very worried about his upcoming election. Changmin's status in the business world was not lower than Sehun's. Soon, he found out that the person behind Taejun's wrongful conviction was Youngkyu. This is great. Through a series of unfortunate events, Taejun was helped by his biological mother and stepfather at this time. Changmin then contacted Taejun and then contacted Youngkyu to let them all meet. What made him even more surprised was that the poor young man did not accept his help. Taejun still said that he didn't want Lucy to know that her mother Sora had abandoned her. He also didn't want Sora to suffer the pain of being blamed by the world for abandoning her husband and daughter. Changmin understood Taejun's thoughts and let him leave first without insisting. However, when Changmin confronted Youngkyu next, he gave no quarter and directly scolded him, accusing Youngkyu of recklessly trampling on other people's lives for his own selfish gain and desires. If it weren't for Taejun's recent expression of unwillingness to reveal the truth, Changmin would have hated to use all his power and ability to expose Youngkyu's ugly face. Youngkyu questioned him, "What gives you the right to interfere in our business? Are you that guy's biological father?" Although Changmin is not Taejun's biological father, he is at least a stepfather. It's just that neither of them knows it yet. Changmin gave his final warning. If Youngkyu dares to do anything immoral again and oppress innocent people, then he will definitely make Youngkyu pay a painful price. When Youngkyu saw Taejun, he angrily ran up to scold him for tattling. Taejun rudely pushed Youngkyu to the ground with one hand. "I know you are the one who is distorting the truth, but I don't care. It's not because I'm afraid of you and care about you. It's because I don't want to hurt my daughter and Sora. But there is a limit to human tolerance. If you continue to endlessly hurt me and my family, don't blame me for being rude to you." Changmin told Myung about how he met Taejun and refused to accept help. This incident made Changmin look at Taejun differently. He never imagined that an ordinary person would keep guarding the one they love in the face of such a big problem. He would rather sacrifice himself than let the one he loves suffer. Taejun's choice also comes from this kind of heart. Changmin understands very well, but Myung doesn't understand. She only cares about whether her son is happy. His son is now in a desperate situation because of the woman who abandoned him. Even the business he just started is about to collapse. Why did he do such a stupid thing? Jinky really couldn't bear to see her daughter suffering and go on a hunger strike, so she had to take the risk and let Sora go. Sora ran to the kindergarten first. At this time, Lucy was being rejected by the other children. They said that Lucy's father was a bad person and would never play with her again. Looking at everything in front of her, Sora's heart ached. Sora couldn't let Taejun's image in Lucy's heart be ruined. She told Lucy that her father was not a bad person, but the best father in the world. Lucy finally asked Sora, "Are you really my mother who I thought had died?" Sora directly admitted it, and Lucy burst into tears of joy, threw herself into her arms, cried out, "Mom!" and felt this true motherly love. Sora could only keep apologizing to Lucy for all the wrong she had done. In the end, Sora and Lucy's mother promised to go and explain to everyone that your father is not a bad person. Subsequently, Sora went to the rented house where he and Taejun used to live to investigate. The landlord also knew that he had done something immoral. The landlord, who felt bad about his conscience, not only told the truth that it was Youngkyu who gave the order, but also returned the reward. This truth was really hard for Sora to accept. Meanwhile, Youngkyu found out that his wife had let Sora go and was furious. He went straight up and knocked his wife to the ground. Jinky, who had been beaten like this by her husband, finally could not bear it anymore. The mother-in-law pulled her to persuade her, which made Jinky even more angry. Since she married into this family, she has only received a gold ring. Then she has been living like a nanny in this family, and has to put up with the mother-in-law's bad temper and her husband's bad character. Now that she thinks about it, Jinky doesn't want to stay for even a moment. Youngkyu played the relationship card with Sora in order to ensure the smooth running of his election campaign. "Sora, you know that your father loves you more than anyone else in the world. Everything I've done is for you and for our family." Sora, however, questioned what he had done with Taejun's life. Youngkyu did not feel that anything he had done was wrong. Stealing his child and abandoning him in an orphanage, he explained, was because he was afraid that Taejun would not be able to raise him. Seeing her father's unrepentant appearance, Sora no longer expects her father to admit his mistake and apologize to Taejun. She decides to use her own method to let her father know the mistake he has made. Sora is going to hold a press conference. At this time, Sehun actually stopped in front of Sora. The ancestral precepts were still thrown out of Sehun's mind. He decided to choose his own love. He told Sora not to hold a press conference and just let things be as they are now. Just get married as planned. But Sora, who no longer cares about her father, directly told Sehun that the fault was all her own. "I was young and irresponsible. Now I can't make the same mistake again. I don't want my child and the person I love to continue suffering." Sehun's words made Sora feel scornful. In their eyes, they believed that everything could be solved with money. But Taejun never thought that way. With this, the relationship between Sora and Sehun was completely over. Youngkyu, who had arrived shortly afterwards, saw Sehun preparing to leave. He urgently asked Jae-woon to find a way to stop Sora from holding a press conference. Sehun only replied with one sentence, "I have no relationship with Sora anymore." Then he left directly. Sora arrived at the press conference venue and began to clarify the facts. She apologized to her daughter, whom she had abandoned shortly after giving birth. Sora clarified that Taejun was not a scumbag, but a responsible and good man. Fortunately, Sora finally gave her father a bottom line and did not say that the person who distorted the truth behind her back was him, or Youngkyu would completely lose his political future. But Sora becoming a bad woman who abandoned her daughter still made Youngkyu's political future shaky. This made Youngkyu in his anger. He had gambled his life and everything he had in order to enter politics. And at this time, Youngkyu decided to let Sora go to save. Youngkyu can now give up on the election, but he must let Sora make up with Sehun and complete the wedding. However, Sehun's sister saw the report that Sora admitted to abandoning her husband and daughter, and she came directly over and slapped Sora hard in the face. She angrily scolded Sora for being shameless, and asked what kind of woman who abandoned her husband and daughter was qualified to be Sehun's wife. This slap also completely severed all ties between Youngkyu and Sehun, and finally hope was shattered. Youngkyu's heart was cut like a knife. That night, Sora left this home of love and pain with her luggage. However, the world also felt deeply remorseful about their previous misunderstanding of Taejun. Everyone took the initiative to buy Taejun's sneakers as an apology. What's more people ordered them from Taejun by phone. For a while, Taejun's sneakers became famous and sales soared, but this did not make Cha feel happy because all of this was achieved at the expense of Sora's endless suffering. Lucy also saw the report that Sora had admitted to abandoning her. Taejun could only try his best to explain to Lucy that her mother had suffered from postpartum depression after giving birth to you when she was young. So your mother did not abandon you, but was unable to be with you. But your mother misses you all the time and loves you very much. Taejun's explanation suddenly untied the knot in Lucy's heart. She was very happy that her mother had not abandoned her and that she finally had a mother. Lucy looked forward to the days she would spend with her mother. Taejun was very worried about Sora's sudden departure. He looked everywhere but could not find any trace of Sora. Just when he was at his wit's end, he received a call from Sora. However, a strange voice came from the other end. It turned out to be the landlord of the rental house where Sora was living. Sora had fainted due to illness. Fortunately, the landlord found her in time and used Sora's phone to call the first number in the call history. Taejun arrived just in time to see Sora trying to escape with her luggage. Seeing this, he hurriedly chased after her and embraced her in his arms. Taejun hoped that Sora would not run away. "Leave the rest of your life to me." But Sora did not want to do that. She said that she had already hurt her father. If she returned to Taejun's side, it would only make her father suffer more. "I want to be alone now to sort out my chaotic feelings." She told Taejun not to come looking for her in the future, or she would go far away. Taejun had no choice but to respect Sora's choice and leave her alone to sort out her feelings. He told Sora affectionately, "My daughter and I will always be waiting for you to come back." Meanwhile, Youngkyu had not given up on his dream of entering politics. In order to save himself, he had to take out all his family assets and give gifts to the leaders to smooth things over, and was successfully elected as the district head after a close call. Youngkyu fainted directly and excitedly on the spot. Full of enthusiasm, he held a celebration banquet for his inauguration the next day. He anxiously waited for his wife, but cursed, "How dare you be late on such an important day?" Unexpectedly, as soon as the words fell, a woman wearing a mink appeared in front of his eyes. Youngkyu looked at her closely and realized that it was his wife. He was so scared that his back hair stood on end. "In this hot weather, dressed like that, aren't you afraid of dying of heat?" While her father was celebrating his moment of glory, Sora became the bad woman being chased and insulted by the world. Her residence was still published by the reporter, which made her panic, so she hurriedly drove away from here. In order to avoid the car driving across the street, Sora had to swerve the steering wheel. Unfortunately, an accident finally happened. Fortunately, Sora only suffered a little superficial injury and was not seriously injured. However, after this incident, Sora deeply realized the preciousness of life and the uncertainty of life. She now only wants to cherish time and the people in front of her, and live with her daughter and loved ones, so she ignored her parents' objections and firmly left the hospital with Taejun. Taejun brought Sora back to her adoptive mother's side and officially announced that he wanted to start over with Sora. However, Mayang has always been resentful of Sora for abandoning Taejun and Lucy back then. Taejun had no choice but to take Sora to the rented house where they had lived together, to symbolize getting back up from where they had fallen. Now that Sora had grown up and become sensible, she should not do anything like what she had done 5 years ago. After all, The car was now a shoe store owner with a stable income. Now Lucy was experiencing the long-lost motherly love. The three of them lived a happy life in this small rented house. Mrs. Lee did not discover that Junhee, her adopted son, was not her real son. Junhee wanted to completely replace Mrs. Lee's son and inherit all of her wealth. He wanted to enter the group and become the chairman of a branch company. Changmin, however, thought that Junhee was not capable of running the company and sent him to work at the grassroots level. This made Junhee very unhappy, so he deliberately pretended to be suffering in front of Mrs. Lee, as if he had fallen and hurt himself. Mrs. Lee could not bear to see her precious son being treated like this. Immediately, she went to Changmin to complain that Junhee could not suffer like this. Changmin clearly told Mrs. Lee that Junhee now needs to go to the grassroots to learn and accumulate experience in order to be recognized as a company employee. But for Mrs. Lee, such a reason meant that Changmin was biased against Junhee because he was not his biological son. In the end, the two parted on bad terms. Fuzi, however, was extremely supportive of Changmin's decision. She didn't want the fake son she had found to become a big shot in the company and amass wealth recklessly. She feels that at this time, Changmin should vigorously cultivate his own son, Dong Hyun, which is the right thing to do. Changmin is a person who clearly distinguishes between work and personal matters and also a person who loves talent. He is impressed by Taejun's ability to design sports shoes, so he wants Taejun to go to his company to manage the System Association department. Taejun did not immediately agree, but said he needed to think about it. Mrs. Lee felt very unbalanced when she learned about this. She felt that Changmin was still thinking about Mayang in his heart, and that's why he ignored his own son and favored Taejun. Changmin was very troubled. He clearly loved Taejun, but how could he do so for the sake of the company's development? The emotionally unstable Mrs. Lee even found Taejun and advised him slightly ironically to see his own abilities clearly. Mrs. Lee went to Junhee's place and discovered that not only was her son's life in chaos, but she also felt that her son didn't feel the slightest sense of closeness to her. However, she could only attribute that feeling to the fact that she hadn't raised her son since he was young. This made Mrs. Lee even more determined to make up for it with Junhee. That day, Changmin really didn't want to see Mayang taking care of Mrs. Lee in his own home. This made Changmin very awkward every time he faced Mayang. Now that Mrs. Lee was in a good mood because she had found her son, Changmin hoped that Mayang would leave. Mayang was also worried that if this went on for a long time, Mrs. Lee would misunderstand her relationship with Changmin. They said goodbye with a simple handshake. Unexpectedly, this scene was just seen by Mrs. Lee, who had returned. At that moment, Mrs. Lee directly thought that Mayang was using the time she spent taking care of her to get close to Changmin, which is why Changmin rejected his own son from helping Mayang's son. Fuzi indirectly blasted Mayang out, saying harsh words and expressing that she really misjudged the person, and that she was waiting for Mrs. Lee to die so that she could take her place. Mayang didn't know how to explain and stood there at a loss. Mrs. Lee was furious at this time, but Changmin reminded her not to doubt her true heart. After all, since learning that she had an incurable disease, he still severed his romantic ties and returned to her side. I chose to forgive all your wrongdoings against me, and even accepted the child you had with someone else. Not only did you not come and thank me, but you repeatedly doubted me. Don't make me regret choosing to return to your side. Fuzi now began to regret finding a fake son to return. It wasn't true blood ties that made Mrs. Lee feel that Junhee was an outsider, and deliberately invested in the relationship, causing Mrs. Lee to lose her bearings. But now that it's come to this, Fuzi is afraid to tell the truth. If Mrs. Lee finds out, she might take her revenge the next second and die with hatred in her heart. That day, Mrs. Lee came to Mayang and asked if she had been secretly dating Changmin recently. Mayang explained innocently that she had not done anything like that. But Mrs. Lee didn't believe her at all, saying that she regretted believing her before. Just as the two were about to fight, Taejun hurriedly stepped in to stop them. During the scuffle, the bracelet Taejun was wearing on his hand fell to the ground, and Mrs. Lee happened to see it, because this bracelet was the one her mother had put on her biological son's hand when she abandoned him. Taejun grabbed it back and pushed his bicycle away angrily. At this time, Mrs. Lee's heart was full of doubts. It was also at this time that she began to doubt the true identity of the son she had now found. Although it was very painful, Mrs. Lee had to find out the truth, so she tried to test Junhee. Junhee, however, directly asked Mrs. Lee for $1 billion to do business. Mrs. Lee simply made an excuse and got past it. Then she asked Junhee what color the bracelet she lost was. Junhee, who knew nothing about the color, just made up a story to muddle through. After getting the result, Mrs. Lee's last shred of hope was completely destroyed, but she still took Johnny's toothbrush for a paternity test. The result was predictable. Junhee really had nothing to do with her. Looking at the report that the identification was invalid filled Mrs. Lee's heart with anger. Before she died, someone actually dared to fool her with such a thing. Mrs. Lee immediately took the identification report and exposed it in front of Junhee. She thought that President Min had found a fake son to fool her for money, but in the face of Mrs. Lee's anger, Junhee was afraid of assuming legal responsibility and had to admit that it was Fuzi who had instructed him. Hearing this result made Mrs. Lee's aching heart even more painful. She never expected that it was her mother who was behind it all. The double blow caused Mrs. Lee to faint directly. Her mother had to explain that everything was an idea she had to come up with in order to save her. But Mrs. Lee still couldn't accept such a lie. She completely stopped wanting to live with such a mother. Mrs. Lee's fake son story is now known to everyone. Changmin hopes that Mrs. Lee will not blame her mother for what she did. Her mother did not want to do such a thing. Her mother is also suffering alone in hell every day. At this time, Changmin still gave Mrs. Lee the greatest comfort. He told Mrs. Lee to get well and find her son. He will be fully responsible. At this point, the only clue to finding her son is in Taejun's hands. Why does he have his son's bracelet? That night, Mrs. Lee was desperate to find Taejun and take another look at the bracelet. However, Taejun was full of hatred for Mrs. Lee at this time and simply ignored her. He told Mrs. Lee not to bother his family again and turned away. Because Mrs. Lee still didn't know that Taejun was Myung's adopted son. She still hadn't begun to suspect that Taejun was her biological son. Changmin quickly drew the bracelet according to Fuzi's recollection and published it in the newspaper. That day, Youngkyo's mother was about to leave after visiting Mrs. Lee's mother. Mrs. Lee, for some reason, asked her grandmother why the family was trying so hard to prevent Taejun from getting together with Sara. At this time, her grandmother told Mrs. Lee that because Taejun was a child abandoned by his parents, how could a child of unknown origin become the son-in-law of our family? Hearing this, Mrs. Lee was suddenly struck by lightning. It was only at this moment that she realized that Taejun was actually Myung's adopted child. Recalling all the coincidences, Mrs. Lee guessed that Taejun was the son she had been looking for. After grandma returned home, she told Youngkyo about Mrs. Lee's fake son as if it were a joke. Youngkyo was very sad to hear that the goddess had encountered such a thing. Then, after hearing that Mrs. Lee was still continuing to search for a child, Youngkyo suddenly felt sad. He wondered which guy would become Mrs. Lee's son in the future. What a stroke of luck. Myung saw the newspaper and immediately took Taejun's bracelet to compare it. Sure enough, they were exactly the same. She immediately called the phone number in the newspaper and arrived at the agreed place. Just as she was about to meet Fuzi and Changmin, the two parties did not know that they were the people they were meeting. Fuzi saw Myung and exclaimed, "What bad luck! How can I meet this woman everywhere?" Myung didn't care and sat in the restaurant waiting for the person she was meeting. When the phone call finally connected, Myung stood up and looked around, seeing Fuzi and the others behind her, also looking for the phone. This was when they realized that they were the people they had come to meet. The two sides sat down together, and Myung told them everything about adopting Taejun. Fuzi immediately confirmed that Taejun was the child he had abandoned years ago. Myung went home and took Taejun's toothbrush and went to the hospital for a paternity test. Mrs. Lee asked someone to buy shoes and, while Taejun was not looking, pulled out a few of his hairs. She immediately went to the hospital to conduct a paternity test. The result from Fuzi's side came out first. Taejun was indeed Mrs. Lee's biological son. She immediately forgot all her grievances against Myung and thanked her. Taejun finally found his biological mother and had a real family. Myung, however, was not happy. Instead, she burst into tears. She had long regarded Taejun as her own biological son. However, to this day, Taejun's finding his biological mother means that he will leave his adoptive mother, but she still decided to personally tell Taejun the truth. Later, Mrs. Lee finally got the results of the identification test. Taejun is her biological son. Finding her biological son before she dies makes Mrs. Lee happy, but remembering the hurt she has caused Taejun makes Mrs. Lee feel like she is being stabbed by thousands of arrows. But even in the midst of her pain, she must recognize her son. She went to Myung's house. Myung, who also felt both joy and pain, accepted all the realities with an open mind. Myung told Mrs. Lee everything about the photos of the car when she was young and how she grew up. Taejun came back and saw his adoptive mother crying. He thought she had been bullied by Mrs. Lee. He was furious and pulled Mrs. Lee up to throw her out of the house. Myung had no choice but to tell the truth. Taejun felt like the world's biggest joke when he heard the news. How could the woman who had always bullied him and his foster mother be his biological mother? but his foster mother told him that the paternity test had been confirmed. This sudden truth was too much for Taejun to accept, and he immediately fled the house. Mrs. Lee had long expected this result. Taejun would never accept her as his mother. The happiest person at this moment was Hyami. She never imagined that she would one day become the sister of the younger brother of a chaebol. In the future, when she sees Taejun at the company, she must bow and call him young master. Jaeho is still rational enough to scold Hyami for still being interested in such things at this time. Taejun now doesn't know how much shock and pain he has endured. You only care about money. But a realistic problem is now presented to Hyami and Donghyun. Taejun is Mrs. Lee's son, and Donghyun is Mrs. Lee's younger brother. This messy relationship makes the two of them feel overwhelmed at this time. Fortunately, Taejun is not Hyami's real younger brother. Donghyun came up with a solution. If only Taejun could transfer his household registration to his biological mother's name, then Hyami and Taejun would have no legal relationship. Hearing this, Hyami exclaimed that Donghyun was a genius, and Taejun, for his part, was really unwilling to accept Mrs. Lee as his biological mother. He bluntly told Mrs. Lee that his only mother was Myeong, who had worked hard to raise him. Fuzi didn't want to see his daughter die in pain, and pulled Taejun, who was about to leave, and told him that your mother is not wrong. It was my greed back then that made me hide from your mother and abandon you. If you want to hate me. But this was not the key reason why Taejun was reluctant to accept Mrs. Lee as his biological mother. Taejun longed to find his biological mother, but he doesn't want his biological mother to be someone who bullies the weak because she is powerful. The fact that his biological mother bullied his adoptive mother is something he can't forgive. He also didn't expect his life to be so painful one day. Fortunately, Myeong is a woman who understands. She persuaded Taejun to accept Mrs. Lee as his biological mother, and told Taejun not to care about the feelings of his adoptive mother. You being able to find your biological mother is the happiest thing for me as your adoptive mother. Besides, your biological mother doesn't have much time left in this world. I hope Taejun can let Mrs. Lee leave this world in peace. Taejun tightly embraced his adoptive mother. How could he not know that his adoptive mother was also suffering from the pain of losing her son? Taejun sincerely thanked his adoptive mother for her great love. The next day, Myeong volunteered to ask Taejun to take Lucy to Mrs. Lee's house to meet her biological mother. Seeing Taejun and Lucy arrive made Yen very happy, and after Myeong had done all this, she felt a sense of self-awareness and quietly left. Although reluctant, Myeong was satisfied that Taejun could find his relatives and reunite with them, as long as her son is doing well. This mother feels that even if she goes to hell, it will still be a happy thing. At the dinner table, Mrs. Lee has never been so happy. Before she died, not only did she find her healthy biological son, but she also had a cute and understanding granddaughter. After dinner, Mrs. Lee sat alone with Taejun. Mrs. Lee told him all the thoughts and feelings she had held back for decades. She also apologized for not recognizing him as her son and hurting him. Even if you hate me, I have nothing to say, but I just hope that whenever I miss you, you can come and see me. Taejun didn't care about that at this moment. He threw himself into his mother's arms and felt the late love from her. The mother and son finally recognized each other at this moment, and the person who felt the most incredible and regretful at this time was Youngkyu and his mother. They never expected that the person they had always looked down on and disliked had suddenly become a being they looked up to. The mother even regretted her attitude towards Taejun and preventing the marriage with Sora. Youngkyu was also full of regret and immediately came up with a plan. Taejun told Sora the truth that he was Mrs. Lee's biological son. Sora happily congratulates Taejun on finally finding his biological mother. Youngkyu is also glad that Sora has insisted on being with Taejun. He pretends not to know that Taejun is Mrs. Lee's biological son and takes Taejun and Sora back home, looking like he has come to his senses for his daughter, saying that he has come to terms with it and allows Taejun to marry his daughter. He also deliberately tells Taejun to treat his daughter well. This made Taejun very happy. He felt that finally the bitter end had come. He was very grateful to Youngkyu. At this time, Sora finally told Taejun the truth that he was Mrs. Lee's biological son. Youngkyu and his grandmother pretended to be shocked and said that they only just found out. The mother and son then smiled at each other. The plan had succeeded. Youngkyu thought that now that he had Taejun, the chaebol son-in-law, he could rest assured. Unexpectedly, at this time, a government executive's corruption and bribery was exposed. If Youngkyu can't handle it well, he will also be implicated and go to prison. Fortunately, Youngkyu has Taejun as a son-in-law at this time. The only one who can save him now is Changmin, so he brought Taejun to Changmin's house, hoping that he would save him out of consideration for being Taejun's father-in-law. Unexpectedly, Changmin simply ignored Youngkyu, a snobbish person, and was unwilling to help. Young-kyu, with no choice, let go of all his dignity and knelt directly in front of Changmin, pleading Taejun to stop. Young-kyu's actions did not resolve the problem, and this made Young-kyu, who was on the brink of desperation, feel angry, and scolded Taejun. He originally thought that becoming a member of the Mirai group would help him, but in the end, he was still useless. He threatened that he would never marry his daughter to him and that he did not need someone as useless as him. Young-kyu pushed Taejun to the ground. This also angered Changmin. Changmin went up and gave Young-kyu a hard punch, scolding him for daring to bully his family in his own home. Now everyone knows why Young-kyu suddenly accepted Taejun, who he had previously looked down on. It was all because Taejun had become the son of a chaebol. At this time, Young-kyu still hadn't come to terms with reality. Thinking that he still had the strength to come back from the dead, he threatened to never let his daughter marry Taejun and to take revenge on Changmin for the punch. In the end, Young-kyu was kicked out. The more Fuzi and Mrs. Lee thought about it, the angrier they became. How could Taejun meet such an unreasonable and insatiable father-in-law? They told Taejun to give up Sora. Otherwise he would be influenced by Young-kyu for the rest of his life and would never be happy. As soon as Young-kyu arrived home, he saw people from the prosecutor's office who had found evidence of his corruption in the yard. His defeat was certain. He had no choice but to escape. His mother was also completely panicked. The whole family was anxious and looked everywhere for Young-kyu. When they learned of it, they were also extremely anxious. He was an incredibly filial son to his mother. But in the end, the mistake he had made his mother atone for it with her life. When she saw Young-kyu again, all her mother could think about was holding off the police so that he could escape quickly. However, at this time, a heartbreaking scene happened right in front of Young-kyu's eyes. Grandma finally left this world forever. At her funeral, Jinki and her daughter cried until they were both in tears. After losing his mother, Young-kyu finally realized his mistake and decided to accept the punishment of the law. Before he left, Taejun brought Lucy with him. Looking at his innocent granddaughter, Young-kyu's heart was full of mixed emotions. Seeing Young-kyu being taken away, Jinki, as his wife, felt like she was dying of pain. In the days that followed, Taejun, who had come to understand his own identity, still went to the shoemaking department of the group. This time, Mrs. Lee felt that Taejun was very capable of taking on the position, seeing that happiness was right in front of them. Mrs. Lee's illness made her unable to enjoy this happiness anymore. Before Mrs. Lee died, as a mother, Fuzi didn't want his daughter to leave with regrets. His mother-in-law wanted Changmin to transfer Taejun's household registration to his name. In this way, Taejun would have no worries in his future life. Then Mrs. Lee would not have to worry about her son and would not have to leave with a guilty conscience. But Fuzi still had his own selfish motives. After all, as long as Taejun officially became Changmin's stepson, then in the future, the group would be Taejun's. Taejun would be his Fuzi's grandson, so the group would still be their family business. Changmin directly agreed, thinking that this was the last gift he could give Mrs. Lee. Taejun moving out of the household registration would mean that he would have no legal relationship with Myeong. After raising her for 28 years, it was extremely painful for Myeong to let go. But for Taejun's life, Myeong endured the pain and agreed. But Taejun disagreed at this time. How could he not understand the kind of harm it would do to his adoptive mother? His adoptive mother told Taejun, "Although it will be painful for me to watch you live on in the future, if I just watch Mrs. Lee die miserably, I will feel even more heartbroken. She is the mother who gave birth to you. You should let your mother pass away peacefully in her final moments." When Mrs. Lee learned that Taejun was going to transfer his household registration, she was furious. She knew she had no right to ask Taejun to do that, and it would also cause Myeong a great deal of pain. Taejun's forgiveness and willingness to recognize her as his mother was already enough for Mrs. Lee. She didn't want to continue to do anything that would hurt Taejun. Although she said she was furious and didn't want Taejun to do it, she was still incredibly moved when she saw Taejun's household registration finally appear as her son. Mrs. Lee had no more regrets. She thanked Taejun for what he had done and also thanked Myeong, her best friend, for her understanding. Human life is only a flash in the pan in the long river of time, and it is even trivial. Mrs. Lee's life also came to an end at this moment. She did not let Taejun see her close her eyes. Mrs. Lee left this world without any regrets. The dead are already like this. A year later, Young-kyu was released from prison and went to his mother's grave first. As an ordinary person, he suddenly felt a sense of relief. He decided to observe the mourning period for 3 years in front of his mother's grave. Sara and Taejun finally came to a happy ending and held a formal wedding. Young-kyu still secretly came to watch. This time, he was truly happy for his daughter. 3 years later, Jinky was finally able to return to a normal life with Youngkyu, and Myung and Changmin became the closest of friends. I wonder if Myung will marry Changmin and become Taejin's mother again as their relationship deepens, and those who have always held fast to their beliefs have all received the lives they want. Jaeho's career has finally taken off, and he has become a successful director. Sora is happily married with a son. Hyami and Donghyun have also found their own happiness, and Taejun, who became the young master of Achable, and Sora lived a shamelessly happy life with Lucy. Okay, that's the end of today's story. Finally, I wish you in front of the screen a happy every day.